OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
20 to 8 on this Thursday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Apologies for the slight delay there, a couple of technical issues, but we are here with you until 10 o'clock this morning, and this is your 36-hour warning to pick your Euro 2020 bandwagon, to get your sweepstakes sorted, to pick your fantasy team, whatever it is that you want to do to make the most of the next couple of weeks. This morning, we're going to be firmly on the Italy bandwagon. Paddy Agnew is going to tell us what sort of shape they're in ahead of tomorrow night's clash with Turkey, which gets the whole tournament underway. We're also going to be looking ahead to the weekend's action in Gaelic football. Kyle Coney, the former Tyrone star, is going to be with us to chat about an interesting month from the perspective of Tyrone and Ulster football in general. And we'll also be talking to Dublin's James McCarthy. Sue will be up with her TV picks, and there is still plenty of fallout from the Ireland camp in the papers this morning as well. We would love to hear from you. You can drop us a tweet at Off The Ball or comment on the YouTube stream as well. Tommy Rooney with us for the morning. How are you, Tommy?
Owen, how are you? Good morning.
So we'll get to the football pod a little bit later on. Yourself, Paddy, Andy, delivering the goods once again. But just want to start by talking about the Republic of Ireland, because we're going to hear from Shane Duffy in just a moment. And maybe there was a sense that the pressure valve had started to be released just a little bit on Stephen Kenny. What's your take on that? Where do you think that the pressure gauge is at the moment?
I certainly think the pressure gauge should be relaxed a little bit. That, okay, it was horrendous the end of last year. The moment in the Andorra game we went 1-0 down was pretty scary, but I think we started seeing some of the green shoots after that. You know, the 2 goals from Parrott. Horgan's been looking good when he's come on. I thought we looked very solid against Hungary. And what is the point in sacking Stephen Kenny right now? What is the point? Stick with this campaign. Let's get through and let's see if there's any improvement off the back of it. That's my take. Stick with this campaign. Reports
this morning that September is going to be make or break for Kenny. That's the headline on the Irish Times, the Irish Daily Star. FAI board still split on the future of the Ireland boss. Paul Lennon reporting that the fact that our World Cup qualifying campaign is hanging by a thread after defeats to Serbia and Luxembourg is still regarded as a serious black mark by some members of the FAI's 12-strong board. And last October's playoff semi-final defeat by Slovakia also remains a bugbear, even if COVID-19 issues and injuries were influencing factors there. The common theme around Stephen Kenny and whether or not he's doing a good job is that you should be qualifying for Euros and hoping for the best when it comes to the World Cup. So maybe the logic out there is that if they manage to come through September without getting a Luxembourg-esque result, maybe there is logic in giving him the contract to see out the next European campaign. I think he's talking about the fact that once they start this next European campaign, all these young players that we've seen come into the squad are going to have 10-15 caps, and they will be much better placed to actually lead the line and take this Ireland team hopefully back to another tournament. But September, if results don't go well, you'd imagine the noise is going to ratchet right back up again. And if you thought that maybe the win against Andorra, now in fairness, I don't think anybody thought the win against Andorra was going to be the turning point for any manager, but if you thought that it was going to change the mood music around Stephen Kenny, you're not entirely right. There's definitely still going to be a lot of debate, I reckon, in the FAI boardrooms about whether or not Stephen Kenny is the man for the job. So it is going to be a massive couple of international windows, those September, October, November games. Kind of on this team, Tommy, we want to hear from Shane Duffy. He's been speaking, obviously, if you're talking about a turning point for somebody, maybe Shane Duffy is somebody that you could point to after the other night, after his man of the match performance. He was in brilliant form on the pitch, he was in brilliant form off the pitch. Here he is speaking after that game.
With any Irish squad, you've always got that belief until you don't. Listen, there's only a couple of games played, and if you write us off now, it'd be stupid, I'd say. So listen, we're just getting going. Hopefully the performances turn into results, and we'll shock a few teams hopefully and kick on. So we fully believe in here. We fully believe that the manager's got the right thing going here, and with a little bit of luck with players, no COVID and stuff like that, we can kick on. It's very, very difficult. I think everyone's well noted that I've had a tough time on and off the pitch, and I felt like I've dealt with it as best as I can. Obviously, I haven't planned it to go like this, but that's the setback I got, and I'm big and ugly enough, I'd say, to deal with it and try and come out the other side. I feel like this season's over with now, and I feel like mentally I've turned a page, and I'm not going to stop now. I'm going to keep going through the summer and be ready for when pre-season comes to hit the ground running. I feel like I've had sort of a year off where I haven't played my best stuff, and I'm ready to sort of get that back next season.
Delighted to see Shane Duffy back in a bit of form. He's saying that they all believe where this team is going. Probably benefited at the outstage at this point, Tommy, isn't it, that this team can actually improve and actually can turn something like an Andorra result into something more meaningful, maybe a point or something in one of the Portugal games, or maybe even a win at home to Serbia. And I think probably when we talk about the pressure on Stephen Kenny at this point, it's probably those Azerbaijan games as much as anything else, and the return leg against Luxembourg in November, which is, there will be the sticks used to beat him with if they don't win those games, basically, is my point.
Yeah, and look, there's always going to be people out there who are going to use a stick to beat him with. But Owen, like you said it yourself, the likes of Jason Knight, Adam Ida, Troy Parrott, hopefully Andrew Bamadeli, Malumbi, they're going to have 10, 15 caps by the time the next tournament rolls around. And we know we're in a transitional period in Irish football. We knew this was coming. So I just think we need to stick with it. We need to stick with it. And hopefully, like, the performances, the results were so bad for the first 10, 11 games, and it just wasn't good enough. Hopefully it starts to turn now and we start to see those bits of hope again.
One thing that won't have brought many smiles to the faces of Irish people this morning is yesterday's England press event. It was like two very painful stabs to the heart of Irish football. Not only was Declan Rice out talking about how great the England camp is and a little bit on his Ireland background, Jack Grealish was also talking about how great the England camp is and how much he just doesn't miss us whatsoever. And we can see it on the back pages here this morning. Jack and Irish watch on as Euros kick off, and now Villa and England's Grealish says, "I've never looked back after changing allegiance." The Irish Sun don't look Jack in anger. Jack Grealish insists he has no regrets about turning his back on Ireland to play for England. There are a couple of other ones. I mean, this is the back of the Guardian this morning. Just Declan Rice looking so happy in his England jersey. If we win the Euros, I'll try my first pint, he says, and he tells a story of watching the 2018 World Cup in a fan zone.
I found that hilarious, and it's the quote in the Herald that's the best bit. Rice eventually released a statement in February 19 saying he opted to play for the country where he was born. He spoke about the images of watching England reach the World Cup semi-finals in 2018 and stuck with him. Now, it's this quote that I'm not fully sure of. "I was actually in Dubai," said Rice, "and it was crazy. It was mental." There's no other context to the quote. There's no other context of what he was doing, where he was watching it. Just on a mad party in Dubai, and he decided to play for England. So, fair play to you, Declan Rice.
Yeah, it's just it's just such a sad moment to see Grealish saying never looking back after switching from Ireland. They just never wanted us. That's okay. I mean, we're over it, but it's like an ex now speaking about how their new relationship is so much better, and that past relationship was actually really crap, and I wasted all my time. I don't know what I was doing. I was young and foolish is the bottom line. On like a more interesting level than that, Miguel Delaney's written a good piece on, I guess, the context of Rice and Grealish somewhat. I guess there's more than just this, but the general theme that we're going to see at this year's Euros about this championship's reflecting more open borders, more migration, more dual, triple nationality players are going to be on show than ever before. He's gone through the statistics. He says in his piece that these are incomplete, but using the statistics that are available to him and the information that's available to him, from the selected 175 of 622 players, 175 have dual nationality, 23 of those possessing triple nationality, and one of them, which is Wales's Ethan Ampadu, eligible for 4 countries. This is in the context, obviously, of when it's printed here in the Irish Independent of Declan Rice, but obviously the Aymeric Laporte story is probably the biggest case of switching allegiance going into this year's tournament. Goes through the countries that have players that could be available for a number of different nations playing this summer. France, the one best represented with players that are of multiple nationality. They've got 17 players who could have played for another country. Switzerland have 16, England have 15, and Wales have 14. And then he does the flip side of it as well with regards to the international teams that have lost most by potential picks playing for other countries, so this broadens the horizons considerably. England are out in front in 18, but that's skewed a little bit by its political union with Wales and with Scotland. And then the rest of the list. Congo in second place with 13 players, and then in joint third place, Bosnia with 9 and Ireland with 9. So top 4 finish, Tommy, for when it comes to countries that can bemoan their heritage, lining out for countries that aren't the Republic of Ireland this summer.
Yeah, and did it make you feel better reading that, Eoin, and to figure out that we weren't the only ones that were losing out on the likes of Declan Rice or Jack Grealish? It's probably a little different when you've actually put stock in the likes of a player. So you've played Jack Grealish all the way through at underage level. You've put a lot of focus on him. You've helped him with his career. Same with Declan Rice. He's got 3 international caps. It probably just feels a bit more egregious when it's like that. But look, it's just the way the world is. Like, I don't know about you, but when I think of my own stock, my mum's from Roscommon, my granny's from Westmeath, my garden's in Cavan, I could have easily represented any of those counties.
You are the Ethan Ampadu of the GAA, Tommy, is what you're trying to say. That would be a nice one, actually, the breakdown of counties that are represented by players playing for other counties. I'm telling you, Kerry are the ones that suffer the most. Keane O'Sullivan, Brian Fenton, etc., Bernard Brogan. I mean, they should be playing for a different county.
Aidan O'Shea, isn't Aidan O'Shea got
Aidan O'Shea, there you go. Thank you, Tommy, for feeding.
Connor Cox is in Roscommon.
Connor Cox, yeah. They're definitely something that Kerry people would bemoan. Like, just to finish up on that, like, it is obviously on the back of the Eimert Laporte stuff, because he was asked yesterday as well about whether or not he feels Spanish enough to defend the badge, to flag the anthem. And he said, it's quite a strong question, but I will try to reply in the best way possible. I will compete at the top level. The objective is the same as Spain's, to win the competition. I will give everything to win with the national team, and that is the important thing. And I think for the vast majority of, 175 players at least playing in this year's tournament, that may be the way they feel. And obviously, given how a lot of us feel a particularly acute sense of Irishness, we've taken this whole thing very personally, and these situations will arise again in the future, and we will continue to take it personally. But maybe the players themselves actually just view it as a competitive step on their own career. So that's Miguel Delaney's piece, worth checking out this morning. It is 7:53 on this Thursday morning. Let's tell you what's coming up on OTB AM this morning. OTB AM, by the way, live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Paddy Agnew on standby. We'll get to him in just a moment. The sports page is coming your way after 8 o'clock. Kyle Coney will set the table for Tyrone's summer at 8:15, and Virtual Insanity with John Duggan coming your way at 9:20. After that, then we'll have Sue's TV picks. James McCarthy of Dublin is with us after 9:05. Up Close and Personal, our latest in that, is coming your way after 9 o'clock, and then we'll have some good stuff from last night's show. Right, so Euro 2020 in 2021 gets underway tomorrow night. It is a pretty exciting opening tie, to say the least. It is Italy against Turkey, an 8 o'clock kickoff in Rome, and Italy in a very interesting place going into this tournament. So we simply had to call up Paddy Agnew and see how it's all lining up. Delighted to say he is with us now. Paddy, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno indeed. So Italy going into this tournament on a 27-game unbeaten run. There is a real case, it feels, building that they have a right chance of winning this thing. Is that feeling replicated in Italy?
Yeah. This competition has been greeted with a lot of excitement and I'd say a sense of relief, and above all, relief at being back at the what I call the top table of world football, because Italian football suffered a terrible shock when they failed to qualify for Russia 2018 World Cup, and they're just delighted to be back where they feel they belong.
What we have seen over the last couple of weeks in Italy is this fly on the wall documentary about the last year, I understand.
Yeah.
Paddy,
yeah.
What have you learned from that?
What you've learned is that Mancini has done a terrific job building from the ashes of the elimination by Sweden in 2017, and which Chiellini, for example, the Italian central defender, called the lowest moan in the last 50 years of Italian football. What he's done above all is he's done two really good things. He's changed the mentality of the Italian national team. Whereas before, and all of you who follow football will recognize an Italian team as thinking above all of defending and then scoring a goal if and when the occasion arises. He's taken a much more attack-oriented attitude, and he plays a 4-3-3. He defends high up the field. He looks for his players to knock it about all the time. He's put together a squad of players who really are good on the ball. And my only question mark about them is they haven't, they've qualified absolutely a clear round. They're qualifying group 10 wins. But that was against sides like Finland, Armenia, etc. And what will it be like when they meet the bigs of European football, France, Germany, Belgium, etc., etc.? That's the only question I have about them.
So that 4-3-3, that shift is very interesting. I've seen people refer to the new style of play as tiki-talia, which is quite a good phrase. Is this like a move away from Catenaccio entirely, Paddy, or is it just a reaction to the type of players he has at his disposal?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but it's much more that, anybody who's old enough as I am to have seen Mancini play knows what a terrific... He was absolutely a dream player. He didn't realise all the things he should have done as a player, but he was a wonderfully talented player. And he's gone for players who are good on the ball or comfortable on the ball. Now, does that mean that his midfield, Barella, Giorgino, Locatelli, does that mean they're, as tomorrow night's midfield, does that mean they're a bit lightweight? They are a bit lightweight, but they're all very comfortable on the ball. He's picked the players that can play the sort of football he wants. But what he's also done, and the documentary film you were talking about earlier illustrates this absolutely fantastically. What he's also done is he's formed a really strong sense of Il Gruppo. The team spirit is very, very strong there. The atmosphere in the camp is very positive. But he's also put together his own gruppo, and that involves Gianluca Vialli, Fausto Salzano, Attilio Lombardo, Lelio Oriali. Now, 3 of those guys played with him in the Sampdoria side that won the 1991 Serie A title, and Oriali was with him at Inter during the years when he won titles there. So he's put together guys that he's worked with before who he really trusts. And it's a very, very tight management unit, and the results are there. The players, so far they've come into, by Italian standards, have had a polemic-free, trouble-free build-up, and they're coming into this with a lot of swagger, very bubbly, and with a lot of expectation on their shoulder.
It does seem as well that this is a personal cause for Mancini. The success of this team is almost validation of him as an Italian. Like, obviously he's had such success at club level, as you point out there, but you also mentioned there some of his own disappointment at international level during his playing days, and I know he's described this as a second chance now, this gig.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He didn't realise what as a player, he won titles with Sampdoria and with actually it was with Sampdoria, but he played very well with Lazio. But he didn't, as an international player, he didn't, for various reasons, too long to explain now, he didn't get the rub of the green in the national team, and he does see this as a second chance. He also sees this, and this again came out in that documentary we were talking about earlier. He's very, very proud, obviously. As all the players in the squads are, all of them, I'm sure this is true of most of the players in Euro 2020, but it's very true of this Italian team that they're very proud, honoured and privileged to be playing for Italy. And they take that role as a representative of the nation very seriously. So, important moments for Mancini are taking the players around to the cancer unit of the Children's Hospital in Rome. It's going to lay a wreath at a memorial to those who died of COVID in Bergamo. There's a whole sense that he feels, and the team around him feels, they're representing Italy, and an Italy that's like a lot of the rest of Europe is crawling back onto its feet with no small difficulty after the COVID pandemic.
Is that feeling mutual? Is the public now right on board with this team? Because I assume after that defeat to Sweden at the end of 2017, the public mood around this team had reached an all-time low.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely bang on. He's done that. That's his great capo lavoro, frankly. He's managed to swing Italian public opinion around, because people were very, very disappointed with what happened in 2017. And he's done it by producing a bright and interesting team. And the expectations are now on him.
Let's get stuck into some of the players that we're going to see at this year's tournament, Paddy. You mentioned some of those midfielders. It's a midfield that everybody's buzzing to watch, quite frankly. We'll start just with Marco Verratti. Are things looking good on the injury front for him? Because he's obviously going to be a key cog of that midfield.
Yeah, that's one question. One negative factor coming into this game, that Verratti's not playing in the inaugural game against Turkey. But we believe Mancini's been in contact with him from the second he got the injury that has ruled him out of tomorrow night's game. And he and Mancini believe that he'll be ready for the second game, which is against Switzerland. The third game is against Wales. So, but however, he's going to be replaced tomorrow night by Manuel Locatelli, Sassuolo player, who's a terrific player. And I actually think, Mancini's put together a very strong squad. There are basically a replacement for everybody in every position. Locatelli is the obvious replacement for Verratti, and I think he'll do very well tomorrow night.
Locatelli, Barella, two players that I think you can pluck out and say, watch these guys, because this is potentially the international tournament where the two of them in particular arrive. Yeah.
It is, absolutely. It is. Well, you mean, 19 of the 26 players in the Italian squad have never been in the finals tournament before, which is most unusual for Italy, because they're always in finals tournaments. But having missed out in Russia, that's what happened. So those two are two absolutely to look at. Barella, for example, has been a key figure, if not the key figure, in Inter's winning of the title in Italy this year. So a lot is expected of him. Another player who I really think could have a wonderful tournament, he's had a very good season, is Lorenzo Insigne, the left-sided midfielder attacker, who has had a great season with Napoli. But he's at international level, like he was in the squad, played against Ireland in the European Championships in France in 2016, but he was only a fringe player then. He's now a key player at both Napoli and for Italy, and he's a player of immense talent. For the international team, he's only beginning to realise that he was looking very, very good in their most recent warm-up game. So I would look to him for a very big tournament.
At the back then, it's a case where you might hope to see some change, or with this new Italian guard, you think to yourself, well, surely Bonucci and Chiellini can't possibly be going. Surely they retired like 10 years ago at this point. That's not the case. There's every chance they start at centre-back together tomorrow night, Paddy?
Yeah, I think they will start, but you're absolutely right. I mean, between the two of them, they're 70 years old, aren't they? So they're not going to be able to play every game. So guys like Bastoni, for example, who's had a tremendous season with Inter, again winning the title, he's likely to step in there in central defence for some games. Both guys have had injury. Both Bonucci and Chiellini have had injury problems. So he will have to be covered. But Mancini's got, he's for example, he's named a Brazilian called, and he is Brazilian, but he's Italo-Brazilian, obviously, called Toloi. Again, a great league season, in his case with Atalanta. He's a central defender. He's been brought in. He will be cover for Chiellini and Bonucci as well. And he is a very, very good player.
One of the iconic moments, I guess, in a grim way from an Italian perspective at the end of 2017 was the scenes of not having Buffon heading to that World Cup, of his tears that night. And it was almost a sense that he'd been let down by his teammates, so he wouldn't get Buffon at the next tournament. There has obviously been a changing of the guard there, which everybody's seen for quite some time now, and Donnarumma stepping up, and this will be his first major tournament. From what you've seen over the last little while, I know that there still needs to be a sorting out of where he's going to play his club football next season, but from what you've seen, is this just going to be an automatic arrival for Donnarumma, that he will be the guy for the next 10 to 15 years?
Yes, without any doubt. He's at this point, he's actually, he's had 5 years in the top flight. He's only a youngster, but despite that, he's had a lot of experience, and even though, as you say, you point out correctly, there's a certain doubt about where he's going because he's obviously leaving AC Milan. We think he's probably going to go to Paris Saint-Germain. We don't know. He is a cool enough customer in his own way. I was listening to him talk about it yesterday, and I don't think the speculation about his future is going to upset him very much. He's going to have a future. He's a player that will be picked up, and he can concentrate on playing for Italy now.
Just to go through some of the Italy fixtures then over the course of the next little while. So the group obviously is Turkey, Switzerland and Wales. So tomorrow night, obviously, at 8 o'clock, they play Turkey. And then in the second round, Italy are going to be up against Switzerland. And then they're going to conclude things against Wales in the final round of the group stages. So it's one of those groups that I think a lot of people are looking forward to watching. I think the England, Scotland, Czech Republic, Croatia group is quite an attractive one. I think this Group A is, and of course, the group of death. Tonight or tomorrow night, Paddy, this Turkish challenge, I think if everybody's expecting Italy to be the dark horses when it comes to potentially winning the thing, Turkey are a lot of people's dark horses when it comes to making a mark in the knockout stages at least. So I presume there is an acute awareness of the dangers that this Turkey team poses tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, because all you have to do is look at the form book. World Cup qualifiers, they beat Holland in spring, this year in March, and during the qualifying round they beat France. You know, two pretty serious scalps to have taken. So yeah, one of my worries about Italy is simply that in the excitement that is around at the moment, that the sight has been lost of how potentially useful this Turkish side is. And if, you know, we all know that it's the biggest cliche of all time, but it's important to get off to a good start in a tournament like this. Indeed, a good start in anything you're doing, but this is really important here. And Turkey might spoil the eating for Italy.
Do we know what the plans are from an Italian perspective to take a knee over the course of the tournament?
No, I don't know about that. There's no comment on that from the Italian, from Mancini.
Like obviously what we've seen over the past week or so when it comes to the fans at Wembley, obviously the fans in Budapest the other night is a fairly negative reaction to that sort of statement. What would the mood be like in Rome to such a statement?
Oh, it wouldn't. There would be no negative reaction. Right. And you know, there have been plenty of Serie A games where players took the knee. But I'm not sure what we simply don't know what the Italian team decided to do.
Fair enough. Like it's always an interesting conversation when it comes to this Italian team and to race within this Italian team as well. I know myself and yourself were chatting about Mario Balotelli just a few weeks ago and him being the first black player to appear for Italy in a major tournament. I saw David Goldblatt then making the point yesterday in The Guardian that this is quite a monotone team. The Italian society and all the elements of it being represented by this team. Is there a slight disconnect at times, certainly post Balotelli's career, between all the areas of Italian society and this football team?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's a very Italian Italy, and the only element of different ethnic expressions are Italo-Brazilian, really, because you have two Italo-Brazilians in Toloi and Jorginho. There are some black players in the side. The Chelsea player Emerson, for one, but he's possibly the only one who's likely to play.
When it comes to a couple of the other people you've been keeping an eye on then over the last few months, Paddy, a lot of people will have backed Romelu Lukaku to go into this tournament as a potential Golden Boot winner. What's your view on him and how explosive he can be over the next few weeks?
Well, I don't know how explosive he'll be over the next few weeks, but he's been an unending explosion all season long in Serie A. I mean, he's my player of the year in Italy this season for World Soccer, and he's, to my mind, apart from Antonio Conte, the coach, he's the single biggest reason that Inter won the title. He's, you know, I don't know how well he played for Everton and Manchester United in the Premiership, but he has just taking the defences apart. He gets onto the ball. You know, he stays upfield, gets onto the ball, turns, heads for goal, and at times nobody can seem to stop him, and he usually does enough to be then able to set up a chance for somebody.
Is that a reaction to Serie A? Is it a reaction to Lukaku himself getting his head more screwed on? What do you put that down to? Like, it has been so notable, the unbelievable step up from Manchester United to Inter Milan. He looks almost like the explosiveness that we saw at Everton at times has just become a thing on a more consistent level.
Well, I don't think it's a big secret. I mean, football, we all know, if you know football, a player's not going to play well if he feels that the ambiente around him doesn't believe in him. And Conte was very keen for Lukaku, really insisted that Inter buy Lukaku. He was the most expensive player they've ever bought. And Lukaku knows inside out that Conte really wanted him there. So he felt very, he was able to very self-confident, very confident, and able to produce his best football. It's also true that a lot Italian football is obviously in some senses, it's lost a lot of ratings. It's by comparison to the Premiership, but it still remains a very tactically disciplined and complicated football, and a number of players when they get here appreciate that, and their football gets better.
And are we starting to see a little bit more of the tiki-taka, the 4-3-3 starting to filter down at club level, or is there just an entire separation between the national team?
Well, there's no team that plays exactly like the national team. But yes, the answer is yes, we are, because there are sides like Atalanta play very, very good football, much more intense football than the average Italian team, and they take the game to the opposition all the time. Napoli, particularly when Maurizio Sarri was there, played a version of Italian tiki-taka. But those are two sides you would immediately look to because they're playing very open and attacking football by Italian standards.
So what's the temperature check here then, Paddy, ahead of this tournament? Are Italy going to kickstart this incredible run all the way to the final and win it from tomorrow night?
Well, I think it would be good for the tournament itself. I'm not sure if Italy can win this. I can't. The inexperience in the squad at this level that I mentioned earlier might tell against them in the end, and maybe they're a bit too lightweight. It could also happen. But what I would say about Italy in the tournament is if it gets off to a good start for Italy tomorrow night, it'll probably be good for the tournament. To have a side like Italy, to have some of the home teams doing, because this is a funny tournament, there are several home teams, to have some of the home teams doing well is pretty important.
So what's your gut feeling then? Who's going to win this thing?
It's an impossibility to say, as you know, but on paper, France, Belgium, and Spain look to be a lot stronger. Look to be the three strongest sides, and then after that, you have in the second row of the grid, you have sides like Italy, maybe England, Germany, Portugal, Poland, and you might have one or two surprise outsiders like Turkey, Denmark. Who knows? But I would say this: I'd say that when you get to the semi-finals, you're going to have sides like that look very familiar. In other words, Italy, Germany, France, maybe one other, Portugal.
World Cup 2022 champions is what I'm hearing coming out of Italy, Paddy. That's the bottom line here this morning, I reckon. Enjoy the tournament, enjoy the games over the next couple of days. Great to chat to you.
Thank you very much.
Paddy Agnew there on the line from Italy, setting the scene ahead of tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. It is Italy against Turkey in Rome in the Olympic Stadium to kickstart Euro 2020. Right, all this week on OTB AM, we'll be bringing you the chance to win a €150 Expert Electrical voucher with thanks to the good folks over at Expert Electrical, your home for large screen televisions this summer. It is a sporting summer at Expert, and you can find your perfect TV on expert.ie or in their 67 stores nationwide. we'll have a voucher winner each morning, and then one of those lucky winners will also have the chance to win a 55-inch Philips TV if their name is picked out of the hat on this Saturday's Off the Ball show. To be in with a chance to win, just name this morning's mystery voice.
Because we've got the game coming that is winner takes all in that game, and I keep saying I'd settle for that.
Here's that voice one more time.
Because we've got the game coming that is winner takes all in that game, and I keep saying I'd settle for that.
€150 to be won and a chance to win a 55-inch Philips TV on the line here. You can tweet your answer to us at Off the Ball. Right, it is 16 minutes past 8 on this Thursday morning. You're with us here on OTB AM. We're going to be chatting Tyrone with Coney next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
If you have a stallion and he goes to stud, there's a lot of hype about him. But if his first season goes badly, basically people write him off. And to kind of transpose that to football, how important is your first managerial job? Because if it doesn't go well, it's almost like, right, where do I go from here? So you kind of have to get it right. You've obviously you're smiling away, so you know what I'm alluding to anyway.
No, look, hopefully there'll be no gelding. There'll be no gelding.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna auto mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna auto mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for the latest betting and stats on every player and team with the Boyle Sports Euro Stats Centre. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you will find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You know, when guys get to senior at the county level, they think some guys will think that they're finished art, that I've reached it now, I'm playing senior at the county. You can always get better. And having the coaches there and having the mindset as a player to, I want to learn, I want to get better. And I go and see, there's Bernard Brogan, one of the best forwards in the country, and he's going out on his nights off and he's kicking 100 balls with his left foot because he knows he needs to do that to get the best out of it.
And people like me, Paddy, from the outside looking in, like I'd have learned way more off Bernard than I would like from watching. Watching the likes of Bernard Brogan that I'd have learned off Diarmuid Coney and David Clifford, because them boys are freak shows.
Yeah. Forget about them.
Like me looking at Shane Walsh, like what am I looking at? Like he's huge.
Jack Grealish.
Yeah, he's right and left foot.
Yeah,
he's cut the hair, so you can't say that anymore. But what am I looking at? Like in terms of talent and natural ability, physical size, all that. Diarmuid, David Clifford, Shane Walsh. I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at a Bernard Brogan saying, right, he's falling over there, kicking out one with his left foot. How does he shape his body and all that? So it's important that you look at the right role models as well and fit into the category where you are. Like me and Paddy were cornerbacks and wing backs who could play in the forward line. Do you know what I'm saying? Where I don't think Clifford ever played full back.
Yeah, great stuff there as ever from Paddy Agnew and Andy Moore. And episode 5 of the Football Pod is now available to listen to right now. You'll get it if you search for the Football Pod with Paddy and Andy, or also in the OTB GEA channel. So make sure to subscribe there to get that and all the other great GEA content we have there. Great stuff this week on the importance of avoiding relegation, the use of video analysis in the GEA, and developing your weaker foot. Delighted to welcome former Tyrone star Kyle Coney to the show. Good morning to you, Kyle.
Good morning.
Just on that clip, so that question was basically about the weaker foot, and it came off the back of an interview with Sheahan McGuigan, who's obviously shooting the lights out off both feet for Derry this year. When he talks about Gavin Devlin helping him develop his right foot during lockdown, is this something that you've seen over the last couple of years, McGuigan developing this, and also is it something that Devlin has been working quite a bit on with other players?
Yeah. Sheahan McGuigan's a fantastic footballer for first and foremost. He's probably in the top 4 or 5 Ulster forwards at the moment. So I'm not sure where Gavin Devlin's getting the confidence or the, because he never kicked the ball too much when he was playing. So But no, definitely, like you need both feet nowadays. There's no player or there's no top marksman in the country that wants to be dominated on one side. So totally, I'd be fully believing in that you need 2 feet. Sheahan McGuigan is very, very dominant off his left. Like he can score from anywhere, but off his weaker foot on his right, he's brilliant as well. So it takes two. It takes them both, to jink left and be able to knock it over the bar. So for me, it's something that every player needs to be working on, no matter what area of the pitch you're on. You need to be able to get out of trouble in the defence by using your weaker foot. So it's definitely something that Sheahan has been working on. And I watched the Cavan and Derry game a few weeks ago, and he was superb.
Yeah, he really has been one of the stars of this league so far. Is that something that's constantly coached at senior intercounty level at the moment? Those really simple drills off both feet? Yeah,
it's something that's been... It's one of those things that never goes away. It's always harped on at, you need to be practiced in the basic skills, because 9 times out of 10, it's the basic skills that let someone down in a game. If you're not confident of turning back and turning onto your weaker foot, whether that may be right or left, it's going to let you down somewhere along the line if you're not using the hand pass off the right and left and using the correct sort of technique all the time. It's definitely something that could let you down a bagful. And it's always, in drills, you're always told intercounty level, weaker foot, right foot, left foot, right hand, left hand. So it's something that never goes away. I've been involved in coaching at the club, and it starts at youth level, and it just continues right on.
There had been a sense, Kyle, that over the last few years, maybe skills had been less of a factor in GAA or just hadn't been encouraged. But I think what we're starting to see with the way football's been played so far this year is that was totally false. I think that maybe players weren't allowed to show their skills as much as they would usually have been, say, in the 2000s. But it doesn't mean that their skills have gone anywhere. These are incredibly gifted players all throughout intercounty football, and what we're seeing this year has just been incredible as a result of them being let off the leash.
I think it's down to the intercounty game is that under the microscope, where every mistake is maximised to the absolute limit, and it's one mistake could cost you the game. That's probably where it comes till you're talking about not letting fellas off the leash, and we're probably seeing this year with a shorter season, leagues being played in north and south, no pre-warm-up competitions. So I would be. It's definitely something that you can see that the skills of players there are fantastic to see. David Clifford, the Sheahan Walshes, who can, Sheahan can take a 45 off the ground with either foot, which is unheard of. We have seen the skills all throughout the league, all across all the divisions, that teams are being let off the leash. They're not being, I don't think that the managers are putting as much emphasis on, that one mistake, because I think that, the reward outweighs that. You're going to get, you need to put a certain amount of risk into your game to get to the level of the Kerrys, the Dublins, the Tyrones of the world, Donegal. So that's where teams are at. They're definitely, managers are not putting as much emphasis on possession. See a lot more kick passing throughout the league. So it's definitely something that's coming to the fore, and I think we're all really, really enjoying the football so far.
It's a really interesting conversation to have in the context of Tyrone as well, which is obviously something we want to chat to you about, Kyle. What's been your take on where they're going this year, and if the style of play that we're seeing is the style of play that we're going to see in the Ulster Championship from Duggan and Logan?
It's been probably a mixed bag for Tyrone in league form. Won one, lost one, and drew one. So we don't really know in terms of where they're at going forward. We haven't had a pre-season competition where we can see different players and different maybe different styles of play and adapting different game plans throughout them games, because teams definitely need different styles for different games, and the teams do adapt in games. So I would be a favour of the more kick passing that's happening among the Tyrone style of play. That they're trying to get the ball from the half back line probably to the half forward line as quick as possible. Fergal and Brian Dooher have only had probably a couple of months, maybe 3 months at most, till impose a game plan where the majority of that team, bar maybe 1-2 players, have been under Mickey Hart, have been used to probably playing a possession game and running it through the hands to a certain degree and getting it to a certain area and then trying to work something whenever we get to at the top end of the pitch. So look, it's been a welcome change for me. I love to see the kick passing. It's something I've always, even in my own game, I love to do it. So it's been something that it's been exciting. It's really, really, really good to see, and I'm happy with the what they're trying to do. There's been a lot of mistakes, but as I said, them rewards, with if you can take out 4 or 5 men with one kick pass from the half back line, the chances are you're getting a score, and albeit probably a 3-pointer.
Some part of me thinks that over the last couple of years, Tyrone have obviously stumbled upon Colin McShane, and this has been a brilliant totemic forward for them, and then they've added obviously McKenna last year, Canavan and Donaghy over the course of the last year as well. So it just seems that Tyrone have more forward talent, but at the same time, did you feel that they could have done more with the forward talent that they had when it came to their tactical approach over the last couple of years?
Probably. That would have been something that I had probably said that. I think my take on it would have been that, forwards probably win matches, and we've seen it as last number of years that inevitably the more scores you get, the better it is for the team, and the better chance you have of winning the game. So we had probably under Mickey's reign, in the early stages, he probably had some of the best players in Ireland, maybe some of the best players we've ever seen, in Peter Canavan and Owen Mulligan and Stephen O'Neill and Sean Kavanagh. So when the sort of second wave of things came and the second group of players was coming, we probably had reverted to a style where it suited some of the players coming defensively, maybe midfielders, and Mickey didn't really trust his forwards as much as he had done. So we probably lined out with more defenders in our forward line, just to compensate the style of play. So we were maybe going out and playing with 2 maybe out and out forwards, and using maybe a couple of wing half backs in the forward line out of 10 and 12 to compensate the game plan. So look, I do think it is something that they could have, we could have maybe been braver in a sense and went for games, and instead of trying to curtail the opposition and as I say, be in the game at a certain stage and then try and win it from there instead of trying to win it from the outset.
That's really interesting, because when we think about the 2 biggest games that Tyrone have played in the last 3 years, I would say anyway, it'd be the 2019 semi-final against Kerry and obviously the All-Ireland in 2018 against Dublin. If we just start with that semi-final in 19, because they're obviously playing each other this weekend as well, Kerry and Tyrone, there was a real sense of worry at half-time from a Kerry perspective that this thing was done, that Tyrone were going to continue what they did in the first half, completely smother Kerry and get the ball into Colin McShane and continue to run away from them, basically. So why didn't that happen? Did that go back to this attitude of perhaps not being on the front foot enough, or not being comfortable enough in the front foot, in your opinion?
Yeah, I know there was discussions at half-time. The way we normally worked it at half-time was we regrouped as a player group first. So being involved in that game, we regrouped at half-time. The management went on their own. The players always just in the change rooms take a minute or so to gather their breath, and then we have a discussion of what the players and what the substitutes feel that they see. And there was discussions of do we keep the foot down here and keep at it? And then the management obviously have their say, and we come to a decision then that I think that we sort of backed off a little, and sort of that gave Kerry the oxygen that they needed to get back into the game. And looking back now, it was a game I firmly believe that Tyrone left behind, and I think we were 5 points up at half time, and it's disappointing to see the outcome, because we're in such a strong position, as you say, not being on the front foot probably long enough throughout that time as a group. Maybe we hesitated slightly and sat in the back foot and invited Kerry on us. And look, once you invite Kerry on, you're only asking for trouble.
So this was almost, I guess, a reflex that you had trained within yourself to retreat a little bit, or was this an actual deliberate thing to say, lads, let's sit back and defend this lead?
I don't think it was a deliberate act to sit back and protect the league. I think it was like as you say, a bit of a reflex where players probably weren't with a 5-point lead, probably players weren't doing the same things that they'd done in the first half. Probably taking the same. I mind a few balls into Sheahan were crazy, where he just threw the. Can't mind who he was marking. Maybe someone at the back at that time. Maybe Taggy Morley, and it was just people were bouncing off and were getting the ball in really, really quickly. I know there was a mistake for the goal where we were all thrown. We're sort of caught up the pitch, and it went from a kick pass to a couple of quick hand passes, and next thing it was in the back of our net, and then all of a sudden it's a different game anyway. But I think it was a reflex in terms of, look, we're 5 points up here. If they score, we can score, and we just keep it at arm's length the whole time. And look, it didn't work out. Like, Kerry got a goal, and automatically they're on the front foot and they're back in the game.
Maybe there's nothing that could have changed the course of history in 2018, considering Tyrone are up against the greatest team of all time. But did, at the same time, something similar happen in that final in 18?
I mean, watching that game, and Tyrone went 5-0 up, and I was just thinking to myself, this is, if you could dream of a start, this is the start you want. And I do believe, looking back at that game, I think players, and I think talking to some of them, we would firmly believe they were not much of a driving seat at that time, that I think players started to maybe do slightly different things on their own and not as a team, and taking shots. I mean, there was a couple of shots off the wicker foot from maybe Frank Burns and Callum McSheehan, who, if they had went over, yes, we're 7 points up, but that, that's the stage where you work the percentage shot, you work it till the right man, you work it till the right areas of the pitch. As you say, the greatest team of all time, Dublin, don't take those pot shots. They work it till the right areas. And that's something that, they're probably looking back on thinking that was an opportunity missed as well. And I know that Dublin definitely dropped 15 men behind the ball at a certain stage, which all good teams do. You have to adapt to the situation you're in. And Dublin done that. They dropped 15 men behind the ball. Dean Rock was playing inside Tyrone's half at that stage. And they knew whenever they were 5-0 down, look, we have got to kill the momentum here. And I think it was maybe a few players doing things on their own that didn't help the whole situation either. But it's an opportunity missed, and as I say, probably, we spoke about it before, not being on the front foot for long enough throughout that period of time probably hampered that cause.
And that's why what we've seen over the last couple of weeks may actually be so important, because it could be a little bit of a shift there. Like, I don't think, Kyle, anybody necessarily expects, say if it's a Tyrone-Dublin All-Ireland final, for example, this year for Tyrone to suddenly start playing swashbuckling football. But what they might do is play exactly how they did in 2018, except they'll have the learned experience of approaching the league with the shackles completely off, and they'll know how to be on the front foot that little bit better.
You're right there. It's... Once you're playing a certain type of way for a certain length of time, it's going to, that's going to be your go-to what happens. So Tyrone have been, we can see that their style of play is shifting. We can see what they're trying to do. We can see that they're trying to move the ball through the foot pass. We can see that they're probably playing with more orthodox forwards. They've had 12 different scores throughout the league, which, in 3 games is a great plus for them. They have unearthed Paul Donaghy. So, as you say, playing on the front foot for, or trying to play on the front foot and going after teams and trying to put it to bed on the scoreboard, as to say, would be, if Tyrone got to an All-Ireland final, say, this year, that's only going to help them. That's only going to say, look, we're going to go after Dublin. We're going to go and try and, put them to the pin of the collar. Kerry have done it and almost got out the gap. It took a replay to get. That's the only way to beat them. That's the only way to beat Kerry, Dublin, and, we've had a mini Ulster Championship as such in terms of playing Monaghan, Armagh and Donegal, but at the end of the day, the yardstick for Tyrone is this weekend, and I really believe that a performance is what Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan's looking, a front foot performance, go and attack Kerry, really, really go after them, and that tells you where you're at, and that'll set them up for further down the line. And
part of that front foot football is approaching the opposition kick out in an aggressive manner. And we had Bernard Brogan on the show yesterday talking about how much AFL he's been watching recently, and how that they're at a whole other level again with their restarts, and how aggressively they chase down the opposition. This has clearly been the way GAA has gone over the last couple of years. Are Tyrone well equipped on that front to actually smother a team on their own kick out?
Well, that's going to be a lot of work that they're going to have to do. Every team will have a kick out strategy on the opposition kick out for whenever they have a free kick. So say that there's a free kick, a scoreable free for Tyrone, they will have a full court press that they have to have. And to me, the one thing that they have to utilise there is Niall Morgan. You know, Niall Morgan is, I'm not sure, I know that you know that he plays outfield for his club, but he's probably in the top 25 or 30 club players out the pitch in Tyrone. That's how good he is. And his kick passing is up there with the best in Ireland. So to me, that's something that they can utilise him, and we've seen teams do it. I've been lucky to be at a few games already this year, and Rory Began has done it. The Armagh keeper Blaine Hughes has done it. So that's a tactic that's clearly being used, and I love to see it. I love to see teams coming up with different stuff, with different ideas, different tactics. So it'll be something that they should be utilising, because there's Niall plays sweeper for his club. He lines out normally at midfield and he plays sweeper, so he can be someone that can be used, and he's comfortable enough in the ball where I know sometimes we see keepers that you can sort of let them come a wee bit. Niall's not that type of man. If you let him come, he's trying a shot or else he's finding a pass inside.
So how far are you telling Niall Morgan to go on the Kerry kick-out this weekend, for example? Is it just to cover the full-back and then at the full-back push-up, or is Niall Morgan going right up?
No, I'd be a firm believer of Niall needs to come out past the full-back line. On that instance, if Tyrone's being brave and say they're chasing the game by a point or two or whatever the state, you know, you play the game at the stage you're at. You know, if Tyrone's winning the game and, you know, you're happy enough just to put a press on with the players on the pitch, fair enough. But say Tyrone's chasing the game by a couple of points, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes into the second half, I'd be a firm believer of Niall needs to come out and push, be brave on the kickouts and push as many Tyrone players ahead of it as possible. Yes, you need to be careful of Clifford and whoever else is back there, but be as brave as possible. Come out past the full back line, play as close till probably Tyrone's 45 as you can. I know, I'm not sure if you've seen the clip of the Dublin game where this year in the league, Kerry only played with two defenders marking 6 Dublin forwards. That's how brave they were in the second half of the Dublin kick-out.
Yeah, and maybe some people will say that it was lunacy at times in the first half, the way Dublin managed to pick them off. Just on what you said there, the Mini-Ulster Championship that you've seen in the North section of Division 1, like, I mean, Tyrone-Kerry is a big game this weekend, but ultimately it might lead to not even a final. I think it's fair to say that the relegation battles are probably bigger fixtures to try and actually stay in Division 1 for next year. So in the context of Armagh especially, from what you've seen, is this a team that is ready to hold their own in Division 1 for the next few years, rather than becoming a Roscommon or Cavan type where they yo-yo up and down between the tiers?
Definitely. That's a team that I've been really impressed with. I've seen them twice in the league so far, and their forwards have been phenomenal. Stephen Campbell, Rian and Oisin O'Neill, Rory Grugan. It's probably names that we have mentioned over the last number of years, being involved with Armagh and probably their main men, but been really, really impressed with them. And I think the addition of Kieran Donaghy to the backroom team has brought an extra wee edge to them. They have, I can see it in their play that they're being slightly more physical around the middle of the field. They're maybe being a cuter in their play where, they're trying to break it up. I firmly believe they should have been out the gap against Donegal. I think they just ran out of steam in 10 minutes, and they'll be kicking themselves because a win in that game keeps them out of the relegation battle. And now they're into a dogfight where the wrong result obviously puts them down. But I do believe that they'll come out on the right side of the result against Roscommon. I think that they're as I say, the forward line's moving too well. They're racking up too much scores. So I think it's a team that can hold their own in Division 1. For me, their only probably problem is getting the defence sorted. Cian O'Hanlon, the first game out, started at number 11. Then 2 weeks later, he playing at number 7. Aidan Fogarty starts at 3, end up playing at 14. So getting the settled 6 at the back and, adopting that sort of column cabinet role whenever they have teams slowed up in the middle third and they can get bodies back. If they can get a sweeper in place who knows his role, who can push out at the right times and get the press on the opposition, I think it's a team that's definitely coming, that can hold their own in Division 1.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I think everybody remembers that 2017 game between yourselves and Armagh. It was such a disappointment. We thought that was going to be the renewal of a great rivalry, but I'd say that rivalry isn't too far away now, Kyle. Kyle Coney, great stuff. Thanks a million for coming on the show this morning. Great to chat to you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. It is Tyrone against Kerry. It is Donegal against Dublin in the semi-finals of a league that might not actually have a final this weekend, but still they're going to be interesting. It's great to see Division 1 North getting to spread their wings this weekend and seeing if this Tyrone attack is going to break down Kerry this weekend. So that's all coming up this weekend. It's going to be a brilliant weekend of sport. It's been a brilliant week, I want to say, for John Duggan as well, which we'll get to in just a moment. But before that, I just want to say all this week on OTB AM, we'll be bringing you the chance to win a €150 Expert Electrical voucher with thanks to the good folks over at Expert Electrical, your home for large screen TVs this summer. It's a sporting summer at Expert, and you can find your perfect TV on expert.ie or in their 67 stores nationwide. We'll have a voucher winner each morning. And then one of those lucky winners will also have a chance to win a 55-inch Philips TV if their name is picked out of the hat on this Saturday's Off the Ball. To be in with a chance to win, just name this morning's mystery voice.
Because we've got the game coming that is winner takes all in that game, and I keep saying I'd settle for that.
Here's that voice one more time.
Because we've got the game coming that is winner takes all in that game, and I keep saying I'd settle for that.
€150 and a chance to win a 55-inch Philips TV on the line. You can tweet us your answer at Off the Ball. Now, John Duggan is with us in studio for Virtual Insanity, but before all that, we've got to rewind and listen back to what happened on last week's Virtual Insanity.
My headline tip is Patrick Cantlay, 22-1. I'm back in the Patrick bandwagon after the Masters disaster. 3 each way, and Patrick, who is brilliant with his ball striking in the USPGA, just couldn't put anything. Was in the top 10 on the final day to triple on 17. He won this tournament to the Memorial a couple of years ago with a 64 in the final round. I think he's a solid each way bet as the headline tip for Patrick Cantlay.
John Duggan, sometimes you just need a crazy bit of luck for things to go your way.
Oh, and that was the most luckiest winner I think I've ever had in my life. Actually, there was one time when I backed a horse, actually backed the wrong horse by mistake, and the one I backed by mistake won at 8-1, and I had 160 quid in my bank account. I was going, what? Because I backed the wrong horse. But
I'm sure there are plenty of moments as a tipster where you're like, God, that ball just slipped out of the hole, or there's bits of...
Well, a Virtual Sanity, like with Rafael Campos twice at major prices this year in Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, and nearly won both times, and was I felt I was cheated out of it by the golfing gods. But the golfing gods have said, okay, you've had a few weeks of struggle, so we're going to let you give you a mulligan in your fight against profit here. So that's what Patrick Cantlay was. Well, John Ram, I feel so sorry for him, should have won the tournament. And the problem with John Ram is, can you go into backing John Ram now in the US Open with confidence? That's the dilemma I have, because I'd be all over John Ram otherwise.
Yeah, how does that shape up actually when it comes to your tipping for next week, or how you're looking at next week?
John Ram was, I've been going on to everybody about John Ram for years, because I think he's one of the best players in the game at the moment, and I think a majors is around the corner. Torrey Pines is where he got engaged. He's got a winning form there, but how will he be affected by what happened at Memorial Tournament last week? And that does take a little bit of edge off your gung-ho, your real bullishness about backing him, but he's somebody that I'll be definitely on the right side of next week.
Right, this week then, who are we looking at?
This is the Palmetto Championship. So this is a tournament that is replaced the Canadian Open on the US Tour, being played in South Carolina. Padraig Harrington, Seamus Power in the field. Brooks Koepka is in there as well, with Matthew Fitzpatrick, Tyrrell Hatton, Dustin Johnson, the world #1 as well. So this is a course that is designed by Tom Fazio, and it's kind of a unique course. It's quite like a links. A lot of waste areas, a lot of sandy areas. So that's the defence of the course, is the sand complexes around the course. Fairways are wide. You need a good approach game, and you need to be a good scrambler. But they've never used this course before on the PGA Tour, so it is a bit of a shot in the dark for punters. So if you are interested in this week, you want to be taking it easy. You want to be doing like 50 cent each way, euro each way. But obviously with feeling a bit of confidence after the Patrick Cantlay thing, I'm going for players I think are in form, or players that I believe that might be suited by the course based on my research. The first one I've gone for, the headline tip this week, Rafael Cabrera Bello at 70-1 for 3 each way. The Spanish player was 116th in the world back a few years ago in 2017. I've been following him quite closely on the PGA Tour, 3 times a winner on the European Tour. He played really well in the Memorial Tournament, but was derailed by 3 double bogeys and a triple bogey. So he actually finished 37th at the end. Not reflective, that result, of his performance. He's won in the desert. He's posted a top 5 at the Open Championship. So he has a links kind of form to his game. I think he's a good each-way bet this week. Rafael Cabrera-Bello, who qualified for the US Open by finishing in the qualifying bracket. So he obviously had a good Monday as well. So Rafael Cabrera-Bello is playing well, and I think it's 70-1 is a good each-way bet for the headline tip. The second one, Lucas Glover. 2 each way, 40-1. He's got a feel for the course. He's already played 54 holes there. He's from the state of South Carolina. He's been playing well this season, 2 top 10s in Texas. And Lucas Glover, who has also won on a Fazio-designed course at Quail Hollow, I think is definitely a good each way bet at 40-1. He's the second one. The third one, Doc Redman. Anybody who follows Virtual Insanity will know he's a regular. He is 66-1 for 2 each way. Once again, all about natural talent for him. 23 years of age, 3 top 10s on the States this year from the neighbouring state, North Carolina. Had a 54-hole lead in Bermuda. The greens are similar this week. I think Doc Redman, who's an excellent ball striker, might benefit from an easier track and a weakened field this week at 66-1. Camilo Villegas, 100-1 for a euro each way. Back in a southern US layout. He likes those tracks. Bermuda greens. It might fit his creative spark, the Congaree course. Camilo Villegas for a euro each way. Another player for a euro each way, Kramer Hickok, 125-1. He's a Texan. On his last start, 14th at the Charles Schwab Challenge. I've been watching him hover around leaderboards the last couple of years. On the tour, not too long. Some decent displays in Bermuda and the Dominican Republic. Kramer Hickok for a euro each way, 125-1. And another player who topped the medalist standings to qualify for the US Open this week was Patrick Rogers, who was one of the best amateurs and cottage golfers in the world. Hasn't really translated to the PGA Tour yet, but maybe buoyed by that finish that gets him to Torrey Pines next week after a poor Memorial tournament. Might play well here. He's a big hitter. Once again, the fairways will suit him. Has got a good putting stroke, and 125-1 for a year each way. Patrick Rogers might be worth a look. I think he's one of these players who might just come out of the blue and win. So Patrick Rogers, Kramer Hickok, Camilo Villegas, Doc Redman, Lucas Glover, and the headline tip this week, Eoin, Rafael Cabrera-Bello in the Palmetto Championship.
John, you are going to fly it over the next couple of weeks. I can feel it. You've hit your bizarre piece of luck, and your cold, calculated genius is now going to come to the fore over the next couple of weeks. Just before we let you go, John, obviously big golf news this week. The Irish Open has been bolstered with a couple of big names. We saw a couple of weeks ago the news that Mount Juliet's going to have fans at it. This is shaping up to be a pretty good event.
Absolutely, and I think the fans... Golf and horse racing are very much outdoors, aren't they? It's easy to space yourself. We all will know people have gone back playing golf as well. So the Irish Open is a great tournament, and I know they had the event in Northern Ireland last year, but it didn't really feel like an Irish Open. And I know Rory's missed a couple of editions. He did miss Lahinch, but Rory's been great for the Irish Open, and he almost saved the tournament really by getting sponsors on board and hosting it for a while and bringing the concept of a host into it. And then he won. Where was it? The K Club was it in 2016, which was an amazing win. I remember him being in tears, and he shrugged off the challenge of Russell Knox, and a really good finish on the Sunday to win Rory McIlroy. So Rory, Padraig, Shane. We were also enamoured with Padraig and Shane at the USPGA. The way they, as I thought, Eamon Sweeney really encapsulated it very well. These two GA lads, you can almost imagine them going around the GA jerseys. Both sons of All-Ireland finalists, Padraig and Shane. So Gray McDowell as well. And hopefully, I know it's close enough to the Open Championship at Royal St George's, so hopefully there'll be a bit of international flavour to it. It's a fantastic golf course. I was down there myself to see Tiger Woods win there, the World Golf Championship back in 2002. It's held Irish Opens before, back in the 90s. Remember Sam Torrance winning there in 1995. So look, I hope you have a great week, and I hope the fans can be there plentifully, depending on the health guidelines, and to see really good golf up and close, because there's nothing like it. If you can get a perch with one of these golfers and to see how they shape the ball off the tee, and then just to see the tagline on the PGA Tour is that these guys are good, and when you see them up close, Owen, you really realise they are excellent golfers. You know?
Yeah, it is. It's really one of the best ways to spend a weekend actually in this country is to go to the Irish Open. Well, why is Rory back, do we think, or what? Like it just, I guess, does it make sense for him competitively even to get that event in at that time? I think so. I think if he does well. I think Rory has spoken publicly about the fact that he hasn't enjoyed no fans. Yeah. I think he's somebody who thrives off the energy of a crowd. Yeah. And I think that having that back on Irish soil where he's won before, where he has good memories of the tournament, it's not really about like preparing for a links. It's more preparing your mentality to get the bit of love.
that sometimes has not been there because there's been no fans he's a guy that he's an artist and he plays off energy and feel and swagger, and things need to be going well, I think, for Rory, and you can see it in his gait and his walk, and I think the Irish Open would be a good setup for him than to go to Royal St George's for the Open. John Duggan, best of luck this week with Virtual Insanity. Thank you very much. You can check out John's tips on otbsports.com. Right, at 10 to 9 this morning, we are turning our attention to what to look out for. If the sport isn't going to do it for you this weekend, there's plenty of film and television alternatives, including, Sue Murphy, the ability to go and sit in an actual cinema.
I know, I haven't actually got there yet because I was saying to you guys yesterday, I went to book a Quiet Place. Because cleverly the company who distributes that said that it has to be experienced in the cinema, and I was like, I totally agree with you, because if you've seen the first film, it's just like, have you seen the first film?
This is John Krasinski and Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it.
It is. I don't know if you'd like it though. It's a bit horror-y, but
horror is stupid, but.
But it's more tension than horror, if you know what I mean. But they just layer the horror or the tension all the way through it. And by the end of it, when you're in a dark cinema and you're experiencing that and you're completely immersed in it, it's a different experience than watching it in your house on a screen. So, like, I can understand why that happened, but I went to book it yesterday and it was sold out. And there was part of me that was like, damn it. And the other part of me was like, yay, people are going to cinema again. This is great. So, like, there's limited seating. So if you are going to cinemas this weekend, my advice would be book in advance and go see whatever Irish film you can. But there's another one called The Father that's out this weekend, and it's Anthony Hopkins, who picked up the Oscar for it, and he has early onset dementia in it, and it's kind of, he's struggling with his life, and his daughter's played brilliantly by Olivia Colman. So there's two really good films in the cinema this weekend, and remember, like, a lot of stuff didn't get released, so you suddenly have these films that would have been out in the States or everywhere else, and they're suddenly getting releases here, so there's tons of stuff that's coming up, you know. And production as well, I assume, is going to kick into gear. Like, next year is going to be a vintage year for film and TV. Yeah, I was actually reading the New York Times yesterday. They had an article called The Show Must Go On, and basically everything is just really starting to kick into gear. There's so many projects that had to be pushed back, and if you think about the big productions, like a lot of the stuff that we saw over the last year was people in 2 rooms moving from room to room with small camera crews, and that was it. The big productions couldn't go ahead because the amount of people that work in it and have to work closely on it. So all of those are going to start kicking into gear again. It's just so nice to have the cinema back and film, like that experience, it can't be matched, you know? Yeah, I don't think I could watch a Malcolm and Marie sequel, to be quite honest with you. I think we've done our era of lockdown production, and I'm okay with that being over. And it was fine. It was fine, yeah. It's in the past. What else are we looking at when it comes to new and shiny things? Oh my God, there's so much stuff out. I have a list of 6 things, so I'll just go through the kind of top ones that I really liked. The first one, I'm going to mention the Crystal Palace doc. It's up on Amazon Prime from last Friday. And these are 50-minute episodes. I think there's about 5 or 6 of them all together. Do you know what? I kind of a little bit fatigued by the whole football documentary thing. I feel like every football club at the moment is like, do you know what we have to do? A documentary. We haven't got one. But I really liked this one because, I mean, we all know the struggles that Crystal Palace had with the administration, but I didn't know the fine detail of it. I mean, the story is incredible. The fans getting behind them, the players insisting that they wanted to stay on and play for Crystal Palace, losing 10 points in the championship, trying to get back up in 2013. The story is just amazing. The only complaint I have about it is that it moves very fast. So it's a brilliant story that you can easily spend a good bit of time telling, but I felt in the first episode it was just flying through all of the details. But it's like the access they have to everyone in the club. They've actually got footage from the 2012-2013 season, and they're doing interviews with players, managers, chairman now about that season and what happened and everything that happened up in the lead up from 2010 when they went into administration. It's for Crystal Palace docs, or for fans, they're just going to love it. But I think it's just there was something really nice about watching something where a football club means so much to these people. It's not, I hate saying it's not Man City, because obviously Man City means a lot to Man City fans, but it doesn't have tons of money coming into it where they can pick any player that they want and they can bring them in. They really bring players through from the local area. They spend a lot of time with their fans actually went and protested outside the bank when they went into administration. Like, this is a real home football club, and that was really nice. It was a really nice thing to watch, and it kind of reminds you why people love the game, why people love football. And I just really liked the doc. That was really good. Great stuff. So that's on Amazon at the moment. And just a quick roundup of what else is new. Yes, well, just fly into the other one. So Loki is the one that's out in Disney. That went out on Wednesday. I'm sure people have already dipped into it. It's 6 episodes. Tom Hiddleston having the time of his life. Like, Tom Hiddleston must love playing Loki. The God of Mischief, the amount of stuff you can get into with that, it's just really, really good. But the real star of this is Owen Wilson. And he plays a timekeeper. He basically is protecting time. And Loki has messed with the time travel aspect, and he's become a variant. So Owen Wilson has to ensure that he's basically brought to heel. But he decides that he's going to make him chase another variant in the time. Like, this is a really complicated thing for something that's actually just set up for the two of them to have banter, and that's fine. Like, I always love the way Marvel make these like really complicated plot lines, but the real beauty of it is the witty one-liners that they have at the end of every scene. But Tom Hiddleston's great. Like, he's really, really good in it. And honestly, I haven't seen Owen Wilson this good in ages. And I always feel there's a bit of tragedy around Owen Wilson for me. And whatever he's in, Anthony, I want him to do well. And it's just so nice to see him in something where he looks like he's genuinely enjoying himself. Like, don't get me wrong, it's Owen Wilson in a suit. It's just Owen Wilson again. But it's actually quite good. The other thing that I was really surprised by is Sweet Tooth on Netflix. I think this is more of a family kind of thing, but like one of those ones that when you watch it and you're just like, actually, this is fine. Like, it's not something I'd be really bored by. The first few minutes are really, really good because the virus is taken over and you're kind of outside them, and suddenly all these.
We just seem to be having a few troubles with your line there, Sue, so we'll re-establish that in just a moment. But A Quiet Place 2, Loki, Sweet Tooth, When Eagles There, some of her newer suggestions. Once we get Sue back, we will just give a quick mention to the Friends reunion, which, by the way, when I saw that there was a Friends reunion happening, I was like, right, okay, so what's it going to be? 5 episodes? 10 episodes? I can't wait for this new great cast that they've announced and for there to be more hilarity coming from the scene of Friends over the next little while. But as it turns out, it was actually just a chat show. The Friends reunion was just a chat show, which was deeply disappointing for me. Of course, it wasn't disappointing for people who enjoyed the Matt LeBlanc memes, but for me, it was deeply disappointing that this actually wasn't a new season of Friends. So reunion, I'm not sure they should have called it that. I think they should have said, we're getting the gang back together for a chat show, not an actual reunion. Because a reunion to me is they're making a new TV show, but that's not what happened. Finally then, we have to mention what Sue is still watching, which is The Mayor of Easttown. And as a television expert, as an actual qualified television expert, Sue basically destroyed her own creed by ruining Mayor of Easttown for our own Tommy Rooney. We got a screen grab of how this actually happened. We've blacked out any spoilers, don't worry. So Sue Murphy texted Tommy on the 29th of May, 2021, 22 minutes past 8, and said, I'm putting in my theory for Easttown now before Monday. I think... It's Tommy Rooney on the line. That's not a spoiler. That's a theory.
Sue Murphy nailed it. Like, I had to black out the rest of the stuff. So she got it right.
She predicted it right.
She gave me a full... She ruined it on me. Absolutely destroyed it on me. But nah, she didn't really. It's actually such good TV. Have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't. No. It's part like I really want to.
It was good, and there was no way that she could have got that out beforehand. There was no leaks. There was nothing like that. So she called it right. It is really good TV on, and it's well worth watching. It's quality. I think we've actually lost it. So
we have.
You're not going to get her back. I have a bit of empathy with you about the Friends reunion. I can understand why you would have thought that, but it's marketing. Like, they absolutely nailed that reunion. Calling it the reunion, getting them all back together. No. They absolutely nailed it.
Get them all back together and film another episode. And then do another episode and another episode. Just drop 5, 6, 7 episodes and solidify your reputation as good people. You are awful people for doing a chat show and reminiscing. Like, that can be done in any way. Don't use the Friends branding, is all I'm trying to say here. It's a hugely disappointing moment. Loving the Lou ring light, Tommy. You're looking, you're popping off the screen this morning, Tommy. We must mention the football pod before we quickly wrap up, because it's another brilliant episode, Tommy. It's out now. Give us your 30-second pitch.
30-second pitch. So there's about 30 minutes previewing the football this weekend. A lot of talk about relegation and what might happen to Cork football and what's gone wrong in Cork since 2010. There's worries about Armagh and potentially Galway if they go down, the impact that could have on Pork Choice and Kieran McGeeney. My favourite part of the podcast is possibly the first 15, 20 minutes. The lads are talking about the influence of the gym in their careers and how seriously they took it, who lifts the biggest weights in the Dublin dressing room, who's the biggest in the Mayo. And then in the last 15, 20 minutes, you played the clip about the weaker foot. And we also have a brilliant 15 minutes about video analysis, where Andy Moran talks about not only doing analysis on his own opponents, but on his own teammates too. So that's worth checking out.
Good stuff. That's available right now. Just to remind you that all this week on OTB AM, we're bringing you the chance to win a €150 Expert Electrical voucher with thanks to the good folks over at Expert Electrical, your home for large screen TVs this summer. It's a sporting summer at Expert, and you can find your perfect TV at expert.ie or in their 67 stores nationwide. We'll have a voucher winner each morning, and then one of those lucky winners will also have a chance to win a 55-inch Philips TV if their name is picked out of a hat in this Saturday's Off the Ball show. To be in with a chance to win, name this morning's mystery voice.
Because we've got the game coming that is winner takes all in that game, and I keep saying I'd settle for that.
Tweet your answer to us at Off the Ball. We're back after these with James McCarthy.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
So I went down there and honestly it was like walking into a Bond movie.
So happy to welcome to the show Mr. Roddy Doyle. He is a Chelsea fan.
I remember in 1970 when they won the FA Cup and I was 12 and it was the best day of my life. I remember charging out into the back garden.
And in fact the bloke who man-marked Graham Jeanette got a broken jaw off Graham. I shouldn't laugh.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app to combine multiple markets on the same match into one bet with the Boyle Sports Bet Builder? Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
First up, a Go Loud original from News Talk.
Get all the news you need to start your day with First Up, the podcast that brings you stories, analysis and interviews with the top newsmakers. First Up, available each weekday morning from 7 a.m. on Go Loud.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
OK, leading public transport provider of bus services, Go Ahead Ireland, is now a partner of Dublin GEA, and they're going to sponsor the Go Ahead Dublin GEA Club Leagues and Championships for the coming 3 years. You can follow the journey on goaheadireland.ie and Go Ahead Ireland's social media as well. And I got the chance to speak to Dublin's James McCarthy as that new partnership was announced earlier this week. Delighted to be joined by Dublin's James McCarthy, as you can see. James, how are you keeping?
Good on now, not bad now. How are you keeping?
All well. So what are we now, a month out from championship at this point? Where are you guys at when it comes to being physically ready for that challenge?
I think we're in a pretty good place. Look, like we obviously picked up a few injuries and stuff as well, like most teams. But yeah, it's great to get the 3 games with the belt up and running, getting up to speed. Got some great games, and we're really looking forward to Saturday now. Donegal should be a cracker game. So yeah, no, I think we're tipping on nicely, and we're looking forward to the summer now. You know.
It seems that every footballer is really enjoying the preparation for this year's championship more so than ever. Is it just to do with the fact that the league has been played in really good conditions?
I'd say it's 90% the reason, yeah. Normally you're going back in January and February and it's horrible training, but you're balancing out the training at the moment with it's definitely a factor, I think. But like, yeah, it's just, yeah, actually it's the whole country really looking forward to kind of things seem to be open up everywhere. So, yeah, but definitely the weather is definitely one of the main factors. But yeah, look forward to playing football this time of year every year. So you have to sign a championship when you're training this time of year and you're getting ready for it. So yeah, it's great.
Is it a championship feel when you're playing at the moment? Like obviously the game against Kerry a couple of weeks ago seemed like a championship game, but without any crowd there, it's hard to gauge sometimes whether the energy was of a championship level. So what was it like?
Yeah, no, the pace is straight up. Like normally you start the league, the first 2 or 3 league games are stuttery enough and, you know, the grand games, and then it's always the later part of the league, bang, all of a sudden it gets faster, it gets quicker, it's better football. So, yeah, like, you can go away there, talk lads, because go away there, and obviously against Kerry, it was you know, very fast paced and hard hitting game. So, yeah, it's just, I suppose, less build up time, it's just into it faster. That's the big difference this year, you know.
So what does your week look like at the moment, given there's so many games and it's generally 1 week between games at the moment?
Yeah, no, it's pretty light. Like so, train on the Wednesday, be a bit of work in it, nothing crazy, like going through stuff, and then the Fridays that you kick around before the match. So it's very light. It's tough to get any kind of harder training, if you like. So it's just it's very much just getting the bodies right and just working on a few little things you can going into the game the weekend. But it's just it's getting the bodies loose, getting them right, and trying to do as much you can to avoid injuries and stuff. So I suppose when this kind of league is over, you might get a 2 week window there to do a bit of training. But some teams obviously straight into championship as well. So it's different for everyone. That's the beauty of the GA championship, isn't it? It's different for everyone, I suppose.
So are you guys like training twice a week basically at the moment? Your Wednesday or Friday and then match day?
Wednesday you have your gym day, then you go and do a bit of work in the gym right on the week. So it's very manageable. It's fine. It's the way we always worked over the years. So but just some of the training's not as hard at the moment, obviously, with the game. So it's pretty straightforward. Like.
I guess there has to be a sense of a spillover from last year when it comes to the fitness. There probably was time to enjoy yourself at Christmas time, but coming into this year, even on your own, you had to be kind of up to a pretty good pace early on this year, because as you say, these league games have been fairly hectic.
Yeah, like we're, I suppose, very lucky over the years. Like myself, for instance, I've been 11, 12 years, you build up a great base of fitness, and a lot of guys in our team like that. So I think we're forced when we go back. It only takes us a couple of weeks to get back up to speed. Like it's not like that. I suppose guys look after themselves so much in the off season. I suppose back in the GA 15, 20 years ago, lads would come back with an ebb in them and they've a stone or two away to shift. That doesn't really happen anymore. Like most guys come back and they're pretty lean, and so it's just about getting the football touch in.
Are players fitter nowadays, James, than when you started? So because that would be the thing that a lot of people said about you during your playing days, all the way through, is that you'd be one of the fittest lads in the team. But have you almost had to up your game again with every single year and with this new generation of player? Yeah,
like it's like a different kind of game and training from when I started off. I'm only playing 10 years on. It's weird. Like so obviously towards the end of the last couple of years, you start wearing the GPSs and your nutrition and you're getting monitored, doing kind of everything. Like whereas at the start, like under Pat and Mickey Wheel and I'm you just go and train and you just like. I would love to wear the GPS back then, because I saved this. You're gonna go. It made no sense. You used to get going non-stop and you're training like an hour and a half, 2 hours. You know what I mean? So it has changed, but that's the same for everyone, I suppose. Like it's changed, but it hasn't changed that much either. If you know what I mean, I suppose. But it's more, everyone's more monitored and it's more scientific, I suppose. That's the difference, I suppose.
Are you guys comparing each other to one another when you're looking at your GPS figures?
Not like some lads look at it no, I take or leave, to be honest with you. I'd easily not wear it, it's like that. So but there's the more competition you're in training, you're trying to you're doing sprints or whatever you're doing like that, you're trying to beat each other. So no, just it's a part of it. It gives you a measure, it gives you an idea, I suppose, of how teams going. But like if you're putting all your eggs in the basket with your GPS scores, I think you're focusing very much on the wrong area that you should be focusing on, It's a football, it's a game of football and it's on the pitch. That's what matters,
Are you just being modest now because you're top of all the GPS scores?
Oh, no, I don't be top of it. Not anymore anyway. No, Jesus. Like I said, look, it is useful to have a look and you can gauge if you're running hard enough, whatever the heck it is, but it's nothing that you should be hanging your hat on too much. Like.
This year, James, is going to be a great opportunity for yourself and a couple of your teammates. I think there's 4 or 5 of you who can get to 9 All-Ireland medals at this point this summer to go ahead of those Kerry lads and to go level with most of the Kilkenny hurlers, actually, of that great team in the 2000s. Is that something that's going to your head at all? Is it something that's motivating you to try and get to that level of greatness?
Like, I'd be lying to you if I said no, it wouldn't. Like, it's definitely something I know that's there, and it's definitely something that, geez, I'd love to go after and achieve, but like, I know how it works. Like if you focus on what's ahead, you get caught on so I'm very much focusing on myself, training at the moment, what I need to get better at. We're like that as a team, and we're just like, we have a big game coming Saturday. It'd be a really nice game to see where both teams are, and we're very much focused on that. But like I said, I'd be lying to you if I don't realise that's in a sense that's something I aspire to and love to win another All-Ireland. Of course, that's why you play the game. But I'm long enough in the tooth now to go. There's a lot of steps to get there, and it starts it started 3 weeks ago against Roscommon. It's continuing now to this weekend against Donegal. It's going to be a tough game. Like, we played in the league last year, and we won by a point. Probably shouldn't have won, to be honest with you. Like, they were probably the better team in the day, but we know we're in for a real tough game the weekend. Like.
Yeah, like, we can all see that as well in the way the Dubs played. There is no one man who's greater than the team. There is such a selflessness to the way you approach football, and that was no different to what we saw in the first 15 seconds of the All-Ireland final last year, when you make that run and pass the ball across goal for Dean Rock. Well, those sort of moments, James, are they instinctive to you at this point, knowing when to make that pass, knowing to make the right decision?
Yeah, like look, there's obviously like more working things and training and stuff, but like, to be honest with you, I was just playing off instinct. The ball went up, I carried up the middle, but like, Dean Rock shelled so loud that I could not give him the pass. So I had to give him the pass. Like, I was about to pull the trigger and then I heard him run, so they had to give the pass. And like, he's brilliant at that. Like, he gets in the right time, the right position at the right time, and he's a real poacher for goals. So there's no look. There's obviously things you work on, like trying to draw defenders to you, pop the ball off, make it easier. But a lot of time, you're just going on what you feel is right, and off instinct, and that's always served me well as long as I played. And you can't overthink things when you're playing. So, like I said, like, I was about to shoot, but I heard him roaring so loud. So he must have, in my head, he must be in the right position. So I better.
What would have happened had you shot, do you think?
Straight to the keeper, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Look, you never know. Sometimes you're asked for them, they go in the top corner. So I suppose it's probably the safer bet to pop it across to the sharpshooter inside and trying to get the score over.
I think we've spoken to you at the end of the league pretty much every year for the last 2 or 3 years, and I ask you the same question every single year, which is, which position do we think we're going to see you in this year? Does it matter to you at this point? Is midfield going to be your permanent berth from now on, do you think?
Well, look, it's hard to know. Look, like I said, focusing on, they're similar positions at the moment anyway, midfield, half-back and all that, but look, you focusing on getting your place first. And I suppose it depends who we're playing against, like, what role you have for the team. Because, like, one day you could be man marking a guy, another day you could be just told to go at the team all day. It all depends on the opposition and if on your form. I suppose if you're playing well in training and deserve to be playing. So whoever will be playing, once I'm playing, I'm happy. But yeah, you could pop up anywhere, I suppose, at times.
Listen, James, very best of luck at the weekend and best of luck for the season in general as a whole. Take care.
Cheers, all. Thanks, mate. Bye.
James McCarthy of Dublin there, speaking as leading public transport provider of bus services. Go Ahead Ireland is now a partner of Dublin GAA, and they're going to sponsor the Go Ahead Dublin GAA Club Leagues and Championships for the coming 3 years. Follow the journey on goaheadireland.ie and Go Ahead Ireland on social media. Up next is the latest instalment of the Gillette Up Close and Personal series, as Kilkenny's Aidan Taggy Fogarty has been speaking with club and county teammate Derek Lyng.
For the first time, I suppose, I kind of laid eyes on it, or kind of was familiar with it, was minor. You were playing minor, and it was with the Emeralds, and you were playing Thomastown in an epic trio of matches. You think it was Ryan B it was, and you drew the first 2 days and you won the second day or the third day, but you were centre back, and I'll actually never forget it, that John, your father, was doing commentary, and he was over the dugout, as you do, be over the corrugated stand, and he was commentating, and a bit of an old scuffle turned out in the middle of the field, and you're involved in the middle of it. You're always in the middle of it. And John was commentating, and he's like, the ball's landed down, and Derek is involved, and we were watching it in the hotel, the tape of it back, and next thing, all we heard was the mic falling, and John was gone tearing across the field into the middle of the ruckus. So that was my first recollection of you, to be honest, Derek. But I was just wondering, with that, was John, or who was the biggest influence in you getting started with the club? Or, we all, like, that spark comes from where you're coming from, or where the club and all that. But where did you get the graph, or was it just that's a joke, Kilkenny, you just had to hurl?
Yeah, it's probably good memories, all right. It's probably a bit of both, Taggy, I suppose. I think when, probably the same for yourself, we were growing up, like, there was very, in terms of what they have, the choice you have now in computer games and other sports even, it was always hurling. And I just remember always having a hurl in my hand or whatever. And it's probably you you had lots of time to spend, and it was always outdoors, so it was kind of always out pucking a ball, things like that, and friends would be over, cousins would be over, and that was always the game we played. And it's yeah, I mean, time rolls on, and you kind of reflect back now and you look at all the people that were involved in the club at the time, and it wasn't that, you know, what they were doing was anything magic. It was just they gave us so much time and kind of nurtured. Everybody went to school with a hurl, and we had street leagues and things like that, and was really encouraged. And yeah, I mean, I remember people like, you know, John Cal would drive us around the county, different matches in the back of the high ice, white high ice van, and there could be 20 lads piled into the back of it. And you know, right up to minor then, you know, Nicholas Welsh would have been, God rest him, would have been over us at that time. And funny enough, Taggy, like, you know, that under 14, 16 team, we were, you know, we never won anything. We actually got a good, you know, we would have took a good few beatings actually, you know, and he was brilliant. He was over us a minor that year. And I remember, you know, your own brother was playing, Philip, and we had a really good crew of lads there, and it was just enjoyable. It was just enjoyable. It was out just playing the game, about training, and, you know, we got a little bit of belief, 1 or 2 games that year, and ultimately got to a county final, which was it was a brilliant start, you know, start for us, I suppose, at that age, because we were still a junior club, and it kind of, you know, I think it set off maybe a little bit of success in the following years. You would have had great success with the minor team at A level maybe a few years later. So yeah, like, there were brilliant memories.
I suppose looking back on it all, geez, you'd say, what have you taken out of it? Like, for me, it was the crack and the banter and the memories more so. Like, we used to sit in the bus together, myself and yourself, up at the toilet seat, and PJ Ryan and Cav in the back, you know, Beavis and Bohan nearly, you know, to be giggling and laughing and whatever was going on. And I thought that was a great little seat there. I know, I think it was Peter Barry before that, so I came in for a substitute for Peter Barry, but the way he used to be going, you know, to be going to the toilet, and should we get a bit of crack out of a whole lot of them going up, and you'd see the different nerves, and Henry coming down and do a bit of stretching, and it's just the smallest things like that for me was the crack and the physio room. What did you take out of it all? Looking back, I suppose, like, I know you have the medals, but what was like? And I suppose people thought we were a robot team, you know, because we didn't like talking to the media. You know, we thought it was just put to a side, to the distraction, which I think is absolutely right. You know, you're playing there to play the game. But like, there was people talking we were robots, but we had some crack. Like, we had holidays, nights out. Now we had to pick our nights out for sure, but like, when we're on it, and the crack and the banter. And I suppose we were kind of the younger crew coming in, and you were a little bit of the older crew, and we'd be slagging each other. But it's things like that stands out for me, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, it's those big games that you think about, you know, like, you felt comfortable once you get on the bus, because you're with everybody again and you're getting ready for the match. But, you know, it was non-stop entertainment really with the 2 lads behind us as well. And before that, it used to be Stephen Graham. So, you know, there was never a short to be running commentary the whole way up to Crow Park. So either if you were nervous or didn't want to talk, you had no choice anyway. But yeah, I mean, the bus, I mean, and that, you know, takes me back, all right. And, you know, they're the kind of things that you do remember. And that's it was brilliant. It was brilliant fun. It was actually good choice of seat on the bus as well. I think you're right there, because everybody had to pass by us, so there's always a couple of smart comments passed here and there. But you know, what's funny is it's the next day. It's nearly the All-Ireland semi-finals, I think. You know, and lucky enough, we played in a few of them and we got good results. But it was always, I think it was nearly the next day, the Monday, that kind of afterglow, and we had, you know, we were all just that satisfaction of making another final and being amongst each other, having that crack, and, you know, the slagging and everything else. But it was in a secure, it was just our own crew, and there wasn't too many people around. You know, often the North lads would start off together, and then, you know, eventually make our way to Kilkenny, and you meet up with everybody else. I think and it was hugely important, actually, I think, for the group in terms of our spirit and everything else, because you're on this kind of I suppose you're on this hamster wheel. You have 3 weeks getting ready, 4 weeks for an All-Ireland semi-final, a huge match and finals, and, you know, I think there's a big build-up, and to get over that and experience it as a group, and then being able to go out and kind of celebrate that and enjoy it was really important. And I really think that stood to us, because we knew come Wednesday, we're getting ready for an All-Ireland final. We're all going to be fighting and battling each other again to make sure we're on the team and make sure we're on the panel. And yeah, that was, I think those were the kind of days that you'd miss that kind of camaraderie, that spirit that was within the group.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I suppose when they're kind of coming to the end of it, then you nearly don't want it to kind of end, but you kind of have to call it. I suppose it's a very personal decision. How did you come to the decision? Was it just injuries, lack of game time, or was it just look, you had enough done, other priorities on? Like, how was it? Yourself and Evelyn sat down together. What was the crack?
Yeah, it was after 2010. I probably had a fair idea. Taggy, in my gut, kind of a few months before I'd made the call on it. And for me, it wasn't that necessarily not making the team. It wasn't on the team that year. Came on as a sub in the final, but I've been struggling with, as you know, I told you often enough about we would have kind of been talking to each other about the various injuries we would have had and things like that. But I was struggling with my hip, and to be honest, it was taking the good out of it for me that I would be in there. We trained at 7:30, being there at 6 o'clock, just trying to get loosened up to make sure you were right, and constantly onto physios and that, and that's all fine for a few years. But I just felt, and I knew in my heart of hearts that, and I think you only find out this when you're in Croke Park, that you need to be at the top of your game physically. And I just felt I was kind of losing a bit of that power game that I had, and it was based on being able to get up and down the field and just being able to compete. And I suppose, I think that was really the crux of it. And part of me could have, wanted to maybe perhaps go back and just be a panel member, but it just didn't sit well with me. And I think it was just my gut then at the time. And I would have had a conversation with Brian, and he was open to be coming back for the following year, and was very good, asked me to think about it. But I think that was just it. I just think you know when you know, and that was really it. And just made a call on it. It was a difficult decision, as you know yourself, when it does, when you do come to make that call, because it's essentially kind of breaking up a relationship after 10 years or whatever else, because it's just part of your life, that routine, the amount of the time you spend with fellas and that, and it takes a while to adjust, I think, get used to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you kind of, for your own sake, I suppose, the type of game you played, you were in the thick of it. I think the heavier the game was, the bigger hits it was, the angrier you got. That's when I saw you at your best. When you got thick, that's when you were at your best. I often see yourself and Colin Lynch going at it there, like two hardy boys, and I suppose it kind of took a toll then with the hips and the injuries and things like that. And it's not ideal to be going and training an hour and a half before training, trying to get right for training. That's kind of like the motto I have. After you went, was there a void?
I know. I think there definitely was, and I knew I had probably a couple of years left with the club that I wanted to kind of, and I had to manage it to make sure that I was ready for those games, and I put my time into that, and I really enjoyed going back to the club for a few years, I have to say. And unfortunately, we got to the intermediate final and it didn't work out for us. But at the same time, we were competing all the time, and we're trying to get up to that senior level. And please God, at some stage we will get up there. But look, it's even just, it's going to the games, Taggy. It's kind of that year in the championship and all that. Like, it is a bit bittersweet, because you kind of, and you felt, I kind of felt still part of it in lots of ways, because I would have been in contact with yourself and a lot of the lads, and to see the team winning was brilliant, and getting back to win against Tipperary that year. But it would have, it would have been kind of hard. It would have been hard to kind of not be part of it, but at the same time you're happy. It's hard. It's kind of hard to explain, I think. I think we all kind of go through it in different. You have different emotions. You'd like to be down there, but at the same time, I wouldn't regret anything. And I still had. You kind of look. We were blessed. We have a good few medals. You have a lot yourself, and I think you just appreciate what you have at the end of it.
It's interesting, kind of you're touching on, say, starting in your own club field, under 7s, under 8s, up to your training under 20s now. I suppose back in our day, well, as far as I was concerned, it was just hurling. That was it. I think the culture has changed a bit. Like, there's obviously more social media, there's more outlets, there's travel. Young fellas have more outlets for themselves, more sports to kind of get involved in. And I suppose, have you seen a difference in a player that maybe when you started out, or maybe when you were maybe 15, 16, 17, going through the ranks? Have you seen differences in players? Is there a different mentality? Do you know, or what's the toughest challenge as a manager these days? Is it to control all the guys? Is it to put things in place? Is it to keep them happy? Because I think the day of like just brushing them aside, them days are kind of gone. You know, you have to play ball with them a little bit. There has to be respect on both sides. You know, what do you think as a manager is the biggest challenge going forward, or even you've seen in the last couple of years?
Yeah, no, I think you're dead right. And I think you can underestimate a lot of the younger players as well these days. And I think they're a lot more tuned in than you think. And I think there's probably a lot more choice in terms of what's happening maybe to when we have a lot more going on. Definitely social media. I'm happy enough that we didn't have to really contend with that when we were playing. Maybe you
what you mean, Derek, is you're lucky enough. You weren't happy enough. You were lucky enough to watch around.
Exactly.
Some of them nights in Miami and Fort Lauderdale on the dance floor.
Honestly. Well, I mean, look, I've seen a couple of. I'm glad. I think you've taken some of those moves. You've used them the last couple of years, so they didn't totally go to waste or anything.
No, I put them to good use.
Yeah, I think you borrowed one or two, mind you, but I don't think I don't think you ever had the shirt off, but you worked on that.
I didn't put out the chest. I think I stole your tractor move. I think you had a tractor move at one stage. I think I robbed that for one just on the night.
Where were we?
Young lads these days, where they're going.
Yeah, sorry. And I think they need to be engaged, and I think there's a piece there where they need to be empowered a little bit as well, and brought in on kind of how we're working as a team and things like that. And I think it's trying to build that kind of a team spirit amongst lads that don't know each other quite well, and but. I think you can underestimate them. I think it can't be just all, going in and kind of, telling them how it is. I mean, there has to be a certain amount of direction, as you know, but I think it's trying to engage them as part of the decision-making process and in kind of how we play and kind of working out problem solving, things that might come up in a game and things like that. And I think that's huge now. And otherwise, I think, they're not as engaged, and I'm finding, you'd hope it's a quicker way of learning as well. But I think going back to it, I think they need to be engaged more. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think keep them engaged and keep them happy. That's and keep the fun element in it. I think we always kind of had a fun element with Kilkenny. Yes, it was serious, and you don't think so serious, but there was always a fun side. And you touched on it earlier on about spirit and nights out and the crack. Brian loved us doing that. Like, I remember there was nights there when we went through back doors and he said, go out and have a few pints, and we had no clothes in the bag, next we're like, he's letting us out. So off we went, got an old shirt and went off. Like, so it is important for guys, especially young guys, to be enjoying it and things. Looking back, Derek, would you change that?
No, not a thing. I mean, there's always, would you have, you'd always have regrets. And I think you'd always remember days when you were beaten, but they were all part of the story as well, and maybe some of our success was built on those bad days and kind of what we learned from it. And so I wouldn't change anything. It was brilliant time, and hopefully, I suppose we're at the stage now we're reminiscing, but hopefully there's a few more to come, in the next couple of years that we see Kilkenny, hopefully this year again, and it's been great.
Yeah, well, it's your job now to bring him through, Derek. I'm afraid under 20, so it all lies on your shoulders.
bring a few through. No, that's it. So hopefully some of them come through, and no doubt they will. There's plenty of hurdles there. So I think always the future is bright there.
All right, Derek, wish you luck. I might catch you down in the hurling field, or I might catch you for that cup of coffee sometime.
Aidan Taggy Fogarty there in conversation with Derek Lyng for our latest in the Gillette Up Close and Personal series. OTB AM, of course, live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Now, let's have a look at what is coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. So, from 11 o'clock this morning, it is our first Euro 2020 show. Sheahan and friends will be with you throughout the entire tournament, and that kicks off at 11 o'clock this morning. From 1 o'clock, OTB Gold, Barry Ryan talking about the ascent to brilliant cycling book a couple of years ago. From 3 o'clock then is Paul Rouse's History of Sport. 4 o'clock then is a retro panel, Structure versus Spontaneity. And from 6 o'clock, it is OTB Gold. That interview with Michael Conlon after that exit from Rio de Janeiro in 2016. What a week that was for Irish boxing, and hopefully better weeks to come for the Irish boxers later on this summer in Tokyo. Right, we're going to leave you this morning with this from last night's Off the Ball.
Well, let's dive in then. Our rugby coverage is with thanks to Vodafone, sponsors of the Irish rugby team, Team of Us, everyone in. Give us a sense, first of all, which South African games have you looked at?
Yeah, so I went back to the Rugby Championship, which preceded the World Cup, and I watched the Australia-South Africa game, and then the New Zealand-South Africa game, which was Rugby Championship round 2. That was a 16-all draw, actually. South Africa scored on the last play. And then the World Cup, they played in the first pool game, which New Zealand won. And then the semi-final, when they beat Wales pretty much on the last play, or certainly in the last few minutes. The final, obviously the game against England, where they won the World Cup. And I also went back to the last time that Scotland played South Africa, just to get an insight into how did Gregor Townsend at that point try and build a game plan to beat South Africa. Now, South Africa won that game at Murrayfield, but not by a huge amount, and Scotland had a good crack. So that's the sort of overview I've taken. I'd actually done the work at the time, but I said this has sort of asked me to go back and look at it again. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, great. Now, I know South Africa have 30 of their World Cup squad, of their 33-man squad, 30 still available. So in terms of personnel, it will be quite similar. They haven't played in a long time. Therefore, you're presuming that the South African approach we saw at the World Cup is going to be pretty similar to what we're going to see this summer. They're not going to pull some magic rabbit out of the hat somehow, I wouldn't think. No.
I think there's been 1 or 2 changes with the coaching team, but generally the main men are still the main men. So Rassie, although I think his title now is Director of Rugby.
Yeah.
And Jacques Nienaber is the head coach. But essentially, these are the 2 guys who came from Munster. So, with my Leinster hat on, we coached as Leinster against Munster, against that coaching team during my first few years at Leinster. And having watched them evolve their game plan into South Africa, there's a lot of similarities, definitely, for sure.
Right.
And because the coaching team hasn't changed much, and they haven't had a game in between time, I'm envisaging that, it'll be a similar game plan. We've got, obviously, the Lions have got some warm-up games themselves, so they've got those windows to get their game plan together. But ultimately, as you know, in these test series, it'll come down to the 3 test matches. And there's a whole variety of things that we could discuss, such as, playing at altitude, referees, etc., which I think we can talk about maybe secondary.
Okay.
The main point, really, I thought the best way to sort of format this would be, how will South Africa defend? As a consequence, what do we need to think about in terms of attack? And from a Lions point of view, and then we'll flip it around and say, how do you think South Africa will attack? And then as a consequence, what are the fundamentals that the Lions are going to need in place to defend? I think it's probably worth starting with the DNA of South Africa. I went there with England in 2012, and if I was to ask anyone what the DNA of the South African team would, it'd be about power. It'd be about intensity, physicality. Very, very strong defence, very good set piece, incredibly big and athletic players with game changers as well. And that's back in my time, 2012. And if you took the Lions series in 2009, you'd say the same. And I don't think anything's changed really. So the first thing to understand is they have a very, very big, powerful side. They went 6-2 in the World Cup final, 6 forwards on the bench with 2 backs. They play a very, very aggressive defensive system. They have a lot of very tall athletes in the lineup, so they'll try and squeeze you at set piece time. And their strategy in defence is high risk, high reward, I would describe it as. So very high wingers, almost like what I would describe as an up and in defence, with the 15, Willie LaRue, closing hard as well. And obviously then you've got these incredibly big athletes in between times. So the Lions are going to need to understand how to break down that type of defence first and foremost. And that's one of the keys, I think, to the success. And it's hitting the sweet spot between playing to space, and there is space on the outside of the high winger, and playing in behind them as well. So I don't think anyone who thinks the Lions are going to run it from everywhere and achieve success would be you'd be foolish, really, because that's a recipe for disaster. Equally, they've got such good counter-attackers in Colby and LaRue, etc., etc. Your kicking strategy needs to be effective as well. So, that'd be sort of an overview of their defensive system. But we can get into the nuances. If you
No, I'd love to, because we don't get into the nuances enough in the media, and this is the kind of eye that you're bringing to it, which is great. On a broad term, first of all, do you like that kind of South African defence? Do you rate it? The wingers being high feels like it's become very much in vogue in the last couple of years.
Yeah, if it's run well, it's very, very difficult to break down. Very difficult to break down, particularly when you've got intelligent wingers and you've got people like Faf de Klerk, who would often hold the edge. So if you imagine, you've got a line out and the edge defender from the lineup will be Faf de Klerk, and then you'll have Mampipi or whoever they decide to select on the other wing. And you've also got that physicality of Delande in the middle and Arm, who are both very, very strong. Colby on the other wing, he would be very, very quick and athletic as well. So if you, and I've seen a lot of teams try to do this, where you, let's say, we're the Lions now, and we have a line out in their half, and what the South Africans will do, they will stack their line out with middle and tail with incredibly tall, big second rowers, Steph du Toit, Khaleesi, Vermeulen if he's fit, at the tail of the lineup, and force you to go off the front. And then if you then come back down the short side, you're probably going to run into a brick wall. And if you go, sometimes like that would be what I call an 11 play. So you come from the line out to the middle, you come straight back down the short side, that'll be 11 play. Hit the middle, go around the corner once, come back, that'll be a 21 play. So 2 phases, one way, back the other way. So that's probably simple terminology if you understand.
Yeah.
And I've seen in all the games I watched, lots of teams have tried that. England tried it in the final, tried a 4-man early doors, and the ball end gets thrown into touch, because you've got like Faf de Klerk, who holds the edge, who's a really, really intelligent defender. So they're trying to force you into playing between the 15-metre lines, which then brings you into playing into the big, big South African physical, aggressive, line speed defenders. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge because your ability to drive is going to be compromised because of the sheer size of the team. Yes. But there is definitely space on the outside, and I've seen teams take that space effectively, and that then puts that open side winger in a really difficult position because he's come high, he's come aggressive, and if you can get the ball outside him, you've then got LaRue coming high as well, which means there's an acre of space behind, an acre of space. And I would, if you were attacking against them early, I would look to sort of condense the South African forwards in a high-numbered line-out. I think like a 4-man or a 3-man line-out early doors, you just put more South African forwards in the back line, so you end up running into a big brick wall. So condense the forwards into a line-out, and then try and play to the edge. And as LaRue comes up, put the ball in behind early doors and put indecision in his mind.
Okay. And
put indecision in the open side winger's mind.
So make LaRue think twice about rushing up as quickly next time.
Exactly. Because then you can exploit the space. Now, there's ways to exploit that space with different starter plays. You can kick it there, early doors, because often you'll see that winger. He'll be probably inside the 15-metre line, so there is all that space outside him. But Jacques has it to a T. The players are very, very good at it. So you have to be accurate. And one of the interesting selection decisions, without going into the personnel, is who are the players that are going to enable the Lions to get to that space? Because if you can get to that space and you can do it with either it's a kick or a starter play, which allows you to maybe hit the middle and go to the edge and expose that winger. And if Leroux comes up, you put the ball in behind. If he doesn't come up, then you take the edge. If you can do that, then you're on the front foot and you're piling down the wing. Leroux's coming across to make the final tackle. The blindside wing's coming over. All the South African forwards, big heavy forwards, having to run back. You're moving onto the ball with your athletic, Currys and Falataus and Jack Conans. They're coming onto the ball, and suddenly you can gain a lot of momentum that way. Same off scrums. I'd say their scrum defence would be very, very similar, quite aggressive, almost like what I'll describe as a swing defence. So again, that outside centre and upside wing would be high. There are ways to break down those types of defences. And again, you would put yourself in the ascendancy if you could take the edge and then have your forwards running onto the ball while the South African forwards are running back from the scrum. The scrum itself, we could talk about, ad nauseum really, because if you think go to the World Cup final, Carl Sinclair got injured in the first 5 minutes, and the game was won on lots of reasons, which I'll come on to. But one of the main reasons it was won was because of the loss of Kyle early on and the damage that South Africa impacted to the England scrum and the penalties that ensued. And, you give South Africa a series of penalties, then you're either kicking 3 points, the kick in the corner, the driving, the picking and going, and you're trying to stop, a lot of very big athletic carriers. So getting good scrum ball will be key for the Lions. Not necessarily, you don't have to be dominant, but you just need good channel one, clean ball, bang, go on, play to space, get them moving around, or kick to space, and then create indecision in that backfield. So the sweet spot between playing to space and playing exposing the backfield, I think will be one of the critical things in breaking down that type of defence. Okay.
So heading for that space, if we see a Lions team or any team against South Africa trucking it up the middle, something's gone pretty wrong. They're not going to have much joy there. Well,
that's a strategy, Joe, that the team could employ. If you want to take on a power team, you've got two methods of doing it in my mind. You play the game of movement, and you move them around, and you exploit the backfield space, and you keep them moving that way. Or you take them on in the power game, and you play a kicking game, you play a territory game. And you take it up the middle, you come back to the 10 who bangs it up in the air, and you put it on Colby's head or LaRue's head. They're not huge guys. Yeah. You contest the ball, and you take your chances. In the power and territory game. Now that's the intriguing thing that I think we'll all need to study. Well, there's a couple of things. One is the selection. And I would probably look at it and say. Back row wise, they've gone athletic, quick, mobile. But centres wise, with Elliot Daly and Harris being the 13s and not a Ringrose or a Slade, it's slightly more conservative in the backline. I think one of the key things in breaking this type of defence down is high levels of skill, high levels of understanding, good running lines, and critically, 2 ball players in your back line, ideally 3.
So you would have liked a bit more creativity in the centres, I'm thinking?
If that's the way they're going to play. Now, okay. I'll come back to the point. So Wales in the semi-final went with, they're going to kick, because South Africa's, I'll come on to South Africa's attack in a minute. South Africa's attack is very much based on territory, field position, power, and they nearly beat New Zealand on both those games I watched by playing that game, that style. New Zealand got absolutely smashed behind the game line time and time again. And it was only the individual skill and brilliance of some of the New Zealand players that got them the win on both occasions. Okay. So I think, Warren Gatland with Wales in the semi-final went toe for toe on the kicking game. And very, very nearly pulled it off. I think it was 16-all, like on 78 minutes, and it came down to a penalty that you could argue could have gone both ways, really. Or certainly it was harsh against Wales, I felt, at the time. And Pollard kicks it, and then they're into a World Cup final. And everyone forgets that, that how that game played out, because everyone was swept away by the England-New Zealand game, which was a complete contrast. But then I go back and look at Scotland against South Africa and the way Gregor approached it. That would be the really interesting thing to look out for in what's the attacking philosophy within the coaching team. How does that evolve? Are we going to go power, percentages, field position? But when you look at the Lions pack compared to South Africans, and look at some of the back row and the front, well, all of them really. There's some critical matchups, in the scrum. The line-out callers, I think, for the Lions are absolutely key. Key, And I'm looking at, you've got Henderson, you've got Itoje. There's not many others who run line-outs for their country. Back row wise, you've got Taggy, Byrne, Courtney Laws can play 6. You've not got many out-and-out athletic 6s who are tall and would add value to the lineup. You've got a Tom Curry, you've got Hamish Watson, you've got Sam Simmons, you've got Jack and Toby Faletau at 8. You've got Tipperick, who else is a good lineup option. But you get my point.
Yes, I do.
That bit of, it's a combination of the coach's philosophy. I guess what I'm trying to say, a combination of the coach's philosophy, which we'll still have to see what that is, and maximising the talent they have available.
Yes. And Stuart, what did Gregor Townsend, if you could briefly describe it, what did he try and do? We know what Gatland tried to do in 19 in that semi-final. What was the Townsend approach to try and break down that South African defence? And did it work?
It definitely did to a point. I think South Africa improved from the game they played then. But I think that Gregor's was more to, let's try and attack that space on the outside.
Okay.
Finn Russell was playing. I think they went for a crossfield kick to exploit the space early. They moved the South Africans around and they caused them trouble. And knowing Gregor as I do, I'll be surprised if he doesn't bring that to the party. And I think selection-wise, the team's probably set up to play that way. Bar the selection in the centres, I think. And Robbie can play at 13, obviously. Yeah. I'd certainly trust Robbie to be able to play that role with an Owen Farrell at 12, and a Dan Bigger at 10 or a Finn Russell at 10. But that'll be the interesting thing to look out for.
Yeah. And listening to you there, am I right in saying you would lean more towards the Gregor Townsend approach personally than the Gatland approach?
Yeah, that's just I'd be definitely more that way inclined. For a couple of reasons. I mean, I think a coach's philosophy is shaped by a lot of different things, and mine has been shaped by the coaches who influenced me, the style of rugby that I enjoyed playing in, the style of rugby I've enjoyed coaching, the success we've had at, say, Leinster, but probably based also on the personnel. Like at Leinster, for example, we're not, we're a big team, but we're not a power team.
Yeah.
And we play the game of movement, and we play the game of movement. When we play a Munster or when Razzie was there, we'd play to space. We'd move the ball around and we'd back ourselves to do that. Now, that's also in Leinster's DNA. I think Leinster, if you go back through the history, and I think so, it's probably a culmination of the three things: the personnel we have, the philosophy of the coach, and the DNA of the team. Now, with the Lions, you've got obviously the personnel is the personnel that's been selected. The philosophy will be decided, and you'll see that evolve during the warm-up games, I'm sure. I can't help but think Gregor's influence will lean more towards that way. I think selection, let's say, is probably shown that. And then, to talk about the DNA of the Lions, you wouldn't say there was a specific one, but you'd say, going back to New Zealand and Australia, those last two tours, when people really got on the feet, it was when they moved the ball, wasn't it? And when
it's amazing.
And when they, you think, go back to Sean O'Brien's try against New Zealand. So I think they will. That's what I think we'll do.
Yes. Well, it would be, without going using too strong a word, it would probably be a touch foolish on Gatland's behalf to go to the trouble of bringing Gregor Townsend, of picking players like Russell, to then ask them to play that maybe more reductive style that Wales played in the semi-final. That's just going to cause conflict and consternation. You need to be on the same page largely, and they're such different approaches. You would think Gatland has said, okay, I'm happy to let you take charge here, Gregor, as opposed to bringing Gregor Townsend out to, carry the bibs and just nod his head.
Yeah, no, but I think to be fair to Wales in the semi-final, the first thing they did was go to Bigger, who went for a crossfield kick to expose that space on the open side wing. So it wasn't like Wales didn't try and play at all.
Yes.
But it was just the way that it was an arm wrestle type game, and it seemed such a contrast to the England-New Zealand game, which was, That's the beauty of rugby, isn't it? There's no one style that's always going to win. Probably other points just to think about in terms of South Africa's defensive system or South Africans' personnel or whatever else. When you get close to their line, there was this period in the World Cup final where England, just before half-time, were absolutely going hammer and tong at the line. And they held them out. And the physicality that South Africans showed at the time. I don't know if you get a chance to see the Chase in the Sun documentary. And Vermeulen was interviewed afterwards, and he said, "You draw a line in the sand, and you defend everything that's behind it, and you're defending your family, your country." And he spoke so well and so passionately about that period of defence.
Yes.
That when the lines get close to the line, they're going to need, I think, variety in the lineup, because I think they're just going to get the ball and drive them over the line. It's so hard to do nowadays, particularly against such a big side. Variety in the lineup, and obviously really clinical execution in that sort of 5 to 10 metre zone outside of the try line, and England tried and came away with nothing. It was such a pivotal moment in the World Cup final when South Africa defended that. So they're things that, like, as a coach, I'll be thinking of strategies and ways in which we can come away with points in those areas by having variety.
And I do want to move on to talk about the Lions' defence and the South African attack. Just a question, why do you think, based on your read on the back rowers they picked and the athleticism they picked there, why do you think they didn't take a smidgen more creativity in the centres, or an extra ball player in the centres?
I think they like Chris Harris as a defensive 13. I think he's very good defender.
Right.
I think Elliot Daly has a lot of credit on the back of obviously the last two. He hasn't played a lot of 13 in the last 4 years. He's played a lot of fullback, not as a lot of 13. His long range goal kicking, I think, at altitude, he's banging them over from 60 metres, Elliot Daly. Whether they'll find a spot for him in the team or on the bench, that'll be wait and see. I do think, with Bundy and Robbie, you have got an ability to play Robbie at 13. And I would certainly, I wouldn't worry about that at all. I think Robbie can be a really world-class 13 as well. And I think, when you go back to the last tour, when Johnny played at 10 and Owen Farrell played at 12, I thought that looked a really more effective combination in the second and third test. I can see, you go back three-wise, I think the aerial contest in the back three is critical. I say we'll move on to South Africa's attack, but who, in an ideal world, for me, you'd have like a really good footballing 15. Now, Stuart Hogg obviously can play that role, and he'd be probably pole position. So I think he's got a critical role to play. But who they play on the wings, and because there is no doubt that the Faf de Klerk, is a very good box kicker, and he does it a lot. If not, they go back to Pollard, who bangs it up in the air. And if they're not doing that, then they're driving the line out. Delandy's carrying into, Bigger or Farrell, whoever's in the 10 channel, and then you've got probably Vermeulen or Steph du Toit coming charging around the corner. And you have to be able to defend those attacks with effective two-man tackles. So how Steve Tandy sets up the defence, will be interesting, because I don't think people give South Africa the credit they deserve for what they did in the final by exposing the backfield in the final against England. So the opportunities that came that ultimately resulted in them winning the game. You could argue were based on the scrum and etc. etc.
Well, sorry to interrupt. I suspect I'm in that camp that doesn't give them enough credit, because as the years have gone on now, if you were to say, how did South Africa win the final? All I have for you is, well, they killed them at the scrum and Colby got a kind of cool try at the end. That was it. And I'm sure that's not giving them enough credit.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I thought they played a lot more rugby than people have given them credit.
Okay.
I thought Willie Leroux in the final was excellent and Pollard was excellent, working off the ball. But what they did really well, they saw space in the backfield. They kicked and exploited that space in the backfield, which then forced England to kick out, which then led to South African pressure through line-out or kick in, and then you give in Colby and Crow, a counter-attack opportunity, and you're talking seriously good athletes here. And then in between times, you've got this pressure game building. You get caught in the back of a tackle because you've not dominated the collision, because there's a big man running at you, and suddenly it's 3 points in. Pollard just keeps banging them over, and the score becomes 3-6-9, and the couple of scrum penalties. Yes. But no, I think South Africa, particularly in the final, I thought they played really well. I did.
So when it comes to how the Lions are going to counter all that, then again, the very basic understanding a lot of us would have about the options in defence. I mean, we'd all get very focused on things like, well, line speed, how high the wingers are, as you've mentioned, or not, and therefore how many people are in the backfield or not. They'd be kind of the basics in defence that we would play around with. So when you're talking about how the Lions counter South Africa, what the Lions do in defence, what are the big things you're looking forward to see? Like, what's the big question mark for them to decide on?
So I think you've got to understand that line speed comes from defensive width. If you don't have defensive width, then you can't generate line speed, because if you come rushing up and then they've got good enough players just to sort of beat you on the edge because you're all tight. So you need defensive width. So you need numbers on feet. South Africans probably have a reputation of, like Francois Lowe will be very good over the ball, but they've not actually got that many, South Africa, what I'll call poach threats, as many as you'd think.
Right.
If Coetzee comes in, from Marcel Coetzee from Ulster, he's a serious poach threat, but the others less so. So I'll be really interested to see a couple of things. One, how aggressive the Lions go at the defensive ruck. So a Tom Curry or a Tipperick or a Hamish Watson. How much license are they given to go hard at the defensive ruck and try and stop them at source?
Because right away there, my thought would be, well, if you're saying South Africa don't have a lot of jacklers, then that's something the Lions should really target so they can obliterate them there. Is it as simple as that?
Well, I think it's probably talking about two slightly different things.
Okay.
I don't think South Africa will go too hard at the defensive breakdown, because they want numbers on feet to get the defensive width to get the line speed.
Yes.
For the Lions' defence, I think that how they construct their defence and who they hold in the backfield is the key. So in the World Cup final, England, on a couple of occasions, just left Elliot Daly in the backfield. And South Africa were absolutely quick flash to see that, and left Elliot Daly chasing the ball, and with a lot of pressure coming on the kick chase. So I think you need to have two in the backfield. It'd be interesting to see who those two are. And I'll give you for example. So some teams on a box kick, when you're box kicking out of your own half, they would leave the number 8 in the backfield with the fullback, and the 9 would chase. England did that in the final. Scotland do that sometimes. And it'd be interesting to see Steve Tandy, what he does with the number 8 on that type of scenario. It'll be interesting to see who they leave in the backfield. If there's 2 in the backfield, and I think there will be 2 in the backfield, because if you leave 1, then it's the South Africans are too good to see it. Who are those 2 players? Is it the 9 and the 15? Is it the 10 and 15? Is it a winger in the 15? Which means obviously if you've got 2 in the backfield, 13 in the front line, 2 men in the tackle, that's 11 in the front line. Now, if you've got 11 in the front line and you can go hard and pressure, I think they can cause problems. But if they don't get the right numbers on feet, South Africa can easily dent them by carrying hard Rather than being a 2-man tackle, it's a 1.5-man tackle.
Yes.
It's across the gain line, and then it's hard to play. If South Africa reach a point where they feel like they're going nowhere, they will bang it in the air, and the two people who are in the backfield need to be good. Because and you know, when you start looking at the back three selection, you know, you've got Watson, Liam Williams, Lewis Rees-Zammit, obviously very young. You've got Hogg there. You know, I can't help but feel that Liam Williams' experience as a fullback and a winger will help him, and Anthony Watson as well. I can't help but feel, but that's probably the likely makeup of the back three. For that.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for exclusive offers sent